A town square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN, home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
He is hit! He stumbles! He's down!
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Mike Gill.
A Thursday edition of the Sports Bash is on the air. What's going on, everybody? I'm Mike Gill, Josh Henning producing today's show. Good to have you with us as we take it till 6 o'clock tonight. So much to discuss. Trae Young, this just in, he's pretty good. The Milwaukee Bucks just completely had no answer for him last night. Literally no answer for Trae Young last night. The emergence of a superstar right before our very eyes has been fun to watch. I mean, I got to tell you, I watched that game last night and thought, I said it yesterday, I think the Hawks are going to give the Bucks more problems. I think this is going 7, and I don't think I'm surprised if the Hawks win this thing. People keep saying, they're not that good. You know, the Sixers are the better team. I'm not so sure about that, man. And the reason is this. Why do I think the Hawks can beat the Bucks? You know, we talk so much about coaching and the importance of it. Well, the best player typically wins in the NBA. If you have the best player, you could have the greatest coach of all time on your sideline, and that doesn't neutralize the fact that Trae Young last night scored 47 points. Now, you might say, well, Budenholzer had a terrible game plan. Guess what? Budenholzer doesn't have anybody to defend Trae Young. He could have done implored anything he wanted, and he doesn't have anybody to stop Trae Young. Now, if he keeps getting the ball out of his hands and makes other guys beat him, sure, that's a different story. But they don't have an answer for Trae Young. They tried everything last night. Kitchen sink got thrown at him. No answer. I mean, literally, they were taking turns. You try. No opportunity. Nobody can stop him from that Milwaukee team. I love what Barkley said after the game. He said basically Lopez is useless in this series. He offers nothing in the series. Bobby Portis was just getting picked on left and right. They don't have a guy that can defend him on the perimeter. They use the pick and roll constantly, and they just pick and roll that team to death. And the Hawks win game 1 last night behind basically a 47-point, 11-assist effort from Trae Young. Now, the news that just came down a couple hours ago, I'm sure if you've been listening to the radio here, Greeny broke it, and it came out, around noon today, right around the end of Greeny's show, and that was the fact that, and this is from Adrian Wojnarowski, a little bit of a Woj bomb, if you will, on a Thursday edition of the show that we will have to dissect and kind of break down. I think it's definitely highly important today. So Woj today says this: discussions on Ben Simmons' future with the Sixers have begun in Chicago this week. Included in those discussions, Clutch CEO and his agent, Rich Paul, and the franchise's front office. No trade request was made, but talks will continue. Now, Woj follows that up with this by saying the Sixers remain committed to working through Simmons' shooting issues this summer, especially his free throws. Doc Rivers and Simmons met to discuss plans for moving forward together, per sources. So there's a lot to unpack here. So let's start to do it. First, there is this from Woj, who essentially says there is intrigue around the league on whether or what the Sixers are going to do with Ben Simmons. Here's Woj.
If you're the 76ers right now, if you were going to move Ben Simmons sometime in the future, you want to do it when his value is high, is elevated. There is still great interest in him around the league. There's a lot of intrigue about whether Philly would make him available, would listen in talks, but how much would teams be willing to give up?
All right, so he says there's a lot of intrigue. Is there interest, intrigue? What are they willing to give up? Well, that remains to be seen. See, I think there's always one team that feels like we're the team that can get the most out of him. We're the team that he fits the best with. I'm the coach that can get this out of him. I have the teammate that he'll enjoy playing with. That will always exist. Who is it? Well, I don't know. Is it the Indiana Pacers? I don't know. Is it the Washington Wizards? I have no clue. But there's one. There's one team out there that says, we can win because Ben Simmons is that good. The Philadelphia 76ers with Ben Simmons have been a much better team than the Philadelphia 76ers without Ben Simmons. So, yes, there's going to be intrigue. Whether you, the listener and fan, likes Ben Simmons or not, that's not the answer to the question. Fine. 85% of you may say, I don't like this guy. He stinks. Get rid of him. Well, luckily, you're not the franchises the Sixers are dealing with, because those guys out there are saying, what can I do to call the Sixers and make something happen here? Well, Woj says, and look, when Woj reports something, this is pretty solid stuff. You're not just like, this guy's winging it. He says this.
I was told today that Ben Simmons' agent, Rich Paul, with Clutch Sports, met with Sixers president Daryl Morey, their general manager, Elton Brand, in Chicago at the pre-draft camp this week. They started to talk about what Ben Simmons' future looks like in Philadelphia and whether it is in Philadelphia. Now, there was no trade request made, I'm told, and that those sides will continue talking here, I think, through the draft and, of course, free agency in August.
So no request was made. To me, the no request part is an interesting thing here. Aren't we supposed to just assume that if they're meeting, that they both have the same thing in mind here? Hey, this isn't going so well. So, of course, they're going to say no request was made, because I think they both recognize, hey, your value is not where we want it to be. Rich Paul has to assume that. Rich Paul, Clutch Sports, has to say, Ben, listen, we can't be requesting a trade right now because, quite frankly, I think your value's down a little bit. So we have to play this as if you want to work on this here and then see what the Sixers, what kind of feelers they can get for you. So there's two ways to kind of look at this. One, why the Sixers would trade Ben Simmons. And it's not your cockamamie idea. It's not because he stinks. No. Here's why, to me, the Sixers have to consider trading Ben Simmons. Because, quite frankly, they don't think he stinks. They are concerned. They are scratching their head as to what happened. But they don't think he stinks. I think the Sixers are as intrigued to keep him as other teams are to acquire him. Here's why the Sixers, though, have to consider trading Ben Simmons. And it has nothing to do with Ben Simmons, the player. It has everything to do with the Philadelphia 76ers, the business. What do you mean by that, Mike Gill? Well, I'll explain. The Philadelphia 76ers, the business, started a process in 2013 that many fans got behind. The purpose of the process, to me, was to regain interest in an organization that nobody cared about. They purposely broke the team up and stripped it down to the studs with a intent to gain high-end talent to try to be a more successful franchise after years of mid-level first-round exits. With mid-level first-round exits, mid-seeds, being a mid-level seed, 5, 6, 7, 8, although you can make the argument that the Hawks is the 5 seed, just buck this trend. But that being said, I don't remember the Sixers even being a 5 seed. I think they were a 6, 7, or 8 over the 20-year span. With the Sixers being a consistent 6, 7, 8 seed, and you knew that going into the season, you were apathetic for the season before it started because it was perceived in your mind you knew where the Sixers were going to end up. 6, 7, 8, first-round exit. I'll see you next year. And this is why the business of the Philadelphia 76ers have to consider trading Ben Simmons. Why? Well, If you come back to the table and say, we're going to run it back with Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and Tobias Harris. We just went through a regular season in which the full 72-game slate, it was, I'll believe it when I get to the playoffs. The Sixers business can't throw away an 82-game season again, where the fan base will only believe once they see it in the playoffs. So you got to say, I don't want to trade Ben Simmons. If you're the business, I might have to trade Ben Simmons if I'm a business. Why? Because I can't put the same product back on the court and sell it to my fans. Because last season, they said, I'll only believe in you once I see you do it in the playoffs. Tobias Harris. Okay, you had a much better year. You looked different. You looked more confident. You looked more decisive. I want to believe in you. But I'll only believe in you when you do this in the playoffs. And Tobias Harris, sadly, he didn't do it enough in the playoffs. Some nights he did, but not every night. And I think now we said, I don't care what I see from Tobias Harris. And Tobias Harris himself said it. Fool's gold. He said it. So now the fans are going to say, I don't care if Tobias Harris scores 25 a game during the regular season. I will only believe what I see from him if he does that in the playoffs. Same with Ben Simmons. Let's say he comes back, he starts shooting elbow jumpers, he's scoring 18 a game, he's dishing out 9 assists, he's grabbing 8 rebounds. He's shooting 75% from the free throw line. All of that will sound good, except for, hey, I will only believe that once you do it in the playoffs. So as a business, forget the team, forget winning, forget being the number 1 seed and all that stuff. This is a business that relies on 41 nights of fans entering that building and being excited about this team. And quite frankly, other entities, they have a website. They want people going there. They want people buying their jerseys. They want people, engaging with their content. This just isn't just wins and losses on a basketball court. And I'm not suggesting that will be complete apathy like there was in the post-Iverson era where just nobody cared at all. You didn't see Sixers jerseys, signs, T-shirts, hats, static stickers, whatever. You never saw that in the 20 years after the Iverson era kind of fell apart after 2001. You saw a fan base that just didn't care. They had to bring Allen Iverson back how many times? How many farewell parties did they have for Allen Iverson just to get someone to come to a game? So this isn't a basketball decision. This is a business decision with this whole situation. And can I sell to my fan base that I'm going to bring Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and sell that back to my fan base? And I don't know that Josh Harris is going to say to Daryl Morey, yeah, I'm going to give you another chance to do that. He might be saying, Daryl, I brought you here. I respect you. But our business is getting people to engage and be excited, and we need that back because our fan base no longer has trust that duo plus Tobias Harris, that threesome can get it done. And even if they can, Josh Harris and Daryl Morey might say, you know what? I believe that Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid can win a championship. They might believe that, but they know that you don't believe that. And if you don't believe that, are you going to be excited about the 2022 Philadelphia 76ers? Most likely not. And that team can win 73 games. And you will say, I'll believe it when I see it in the playoffs. They could be the number 1 seed yet again. And you'd say, saw that one already. You failed me last year because you have the same crew of guys. Now, if you win 73 games, and you traded Ben Simmons, and you brought in, let's say, Malcolm Brogdon and TJ Warren, which is a proposed trade out in the fantasy trade world land, and you won 73 games, you're going to say, oh, they won 73 games with this team. Oh, it looks a lot different. I can believe it. This guy, he's scoring 20 a game, even though Malcolm Brogdon's not a better player than Ben Simmons. But because he scores 20 a night, you might say, I believe in him. This Ben Simmons thing is more of a business decision than it is a basketball decision, because the basketball side of things, they want to give Ben Simmons another shot, period, point blank. The Philadelphia 76ers, I think, want to give Ben Simmons another shot. They want to see if Doc Rivers will work with him and get something out of him that they couldn't get because, well, it was COVID and then he was coming off. We forget. He was hurt last year and he came off that back injury. So how much work did he really put in over the summer? Probably not all that much. And the end result was a guy who looks like he hasn't gotten much better. Totally agree with that, 100%. But in the mind of the basketball coach, they believe that they can get something from him. They believe that he is better for them than they are sending him to somebody else. Watch the game last night and ask yourself, wouldn't the Milwaukee Bucks like to have had somebody that they could say, listen, I don't mind if you score. We've got other guys to score, but we really need someone to slow that guy down. They didn't have an answer. And their guy, who is the quote-unquote Defensive Player of the Year award-running guy in Giannis Antetokounmpo, he can't run around with Trae Young, but Ben Simmons can. So, yeah, Giannis scored how many points last night? Wasn't good enough because they could not stop Trae Young last night. So when the Sixers realistically make this decision, in my opinion, this decision for the Sixers is more based on we can't sell this to our fans again. We have tried this 4 times now, and it hasn't worked. And we think it could work, but it's not working, so it's time to try to do something different. Because other than that, they're not getting fair market value. The only way they make a trade for Ben Simmons is if somebody knocks their socks off and they can't refuse the deal. And that is your Dame Lillard, your Bradley Beal, and I don't know what other level of player that you would say that guy gets the call and they say, we'll take Ben, you take him, maybe throw us this guy, yada, yada. That's it. I don't know that the Sixers are going to do the pennies on the dollar deal. They'd be better off just saying, look, we'll bring Ben back. We will see if he has changed. We're getting offers for penny on the dollar anyway. Let's see if we can showcase him. And if we can't, and he's not the same player, we're going to get pennies on the dollar for him anyway. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. This is the Sports Bash Thursday edition. I want to get more from Woj. I have those quotes still coming up. You'll hear what he had to say about what could be next for Ben Simmons because they met today, the Sixers and the Ben Simmons team. Does this really suggest they are trying to trade him? Or does this just say, look, you're better with us than against us? All of that here today on the Sports Bash, plus the Phillies in action against the Mets. Frank Close will join me at 3:40 today. Keith Smith on the NBA. There was a coaching hire today. The Pacers have hired Rick Carlisle. Another retread for you, Josh. I know you like that. Sports Bash is brought to you by your Delaware Valley Acura dealers. For great deals on Acura's award-winning lineup, shop online at DelValAcuraDealers.com. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash, where you can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Just search 973 ESPN. You can be a part of the show in a variety of ways. You can call us at 609-573-3776. You can text us 609-403-0973. Or if you're a part of the video stream, you can leave a message in the chat comment section, and we will post them up on the screen. This is the Sports Bash. I am Mike Gill. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Don't forget, stick around for Keith Smith. We'll get his thoughts on this Woj bomb today. I say Woj bomb. It's not like they said Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons are getting traded, but the discussions on Ben Simmons' future have begun. Rich Paul today, he met with Daryl Morey and Elton Brand to begin evaluating the next steps in Simmons' Sixers career. But when it's gotten to this point, when you have a all-star, look, Ben Simmons is a three, whether you like to take this in or not, it is not easy to make the NBA All-Star game. All right? It is not something that is like it's not like making the Pro Bowl. All right? You've got to really be considered by your peers, and they only take 15 guys of the teams in your conference. And typically, they don't just hand this out to like, hey, here's a role player. Let's give it to him because he's a nice guy. You got to be really pretty good to do it 3 times. Ben Simmons is a 3-time All-Star. He is the defensive first-team all-defensive team. He is the Rookie of the Year thing I don't care about. Great. He was the Rookie of the Year. So was Michael Carter-Williams. That is not something that is on the list of things that I'm like, wow. But, a 3-time All-Star in the NBA, that's not like saying, he's a Pro Bowler. No, a 3-time All-Star means you are well respected by the league. He is an NBA third-team All-NBA player. You know how many people make that in the entire league? 15. That's it. Last year in 2020, he was voted to be one of the top 15 players in the entire league. Pretty wild when you break that down. He is All-NBA third team. Wild. He is a 2-time NBA All-Defensive first team. He's the steals leader. He defends 5 guys on the floor. So the value from another team is probably there. The question is, what are they discussing? Rich Paul engaging with the Sixers on what makes sense. Work together to find a trade, or let's see if we can fix this here. And again, I think the Sixers are saying if he's committed to staying here and working with us, we are willing to keep him here. That's the way they have to play this. The Sixers themselves have to play in that fashion. If he's willing to listen to what we want him to do, fine. No more hanging out with your brother. No more hanging out with your friends. No more hanging out with your family. Like, I get it. Those are all nice people. We're not bashing them. We're not talking down upon them, but they're not getting it done. Hanging out with your brother all summer long, shooting a couple jumpers, filming it, putting it out there, that's not working. It's time for him to either do what we want done and see if it translates into games, or we might have to move on. Are you willing to accept that, Ben Simmons? Are you willing to live in Philadelphia this summer and come back here a different player? What is your answer to that, Ben? Because that's the thing. He might say, I am committed to working on my game, but I want to do it on South Beach. Then guess what, Ben? I've got to move you. I'm sorry. If that's his answer, to me, if that's his answer, I'm committed to working on my game, but I want to do it on South Beach, or I want to do it in Los Angeles or wherever, I'm not interested in that. Sorry, Ben. We're going to explore trading you. How does Minnesota sound? Right? I'm going to explore trading you. What does Cleveland look like this time of the year? Because I cannot allow you to work on your game with the game plan that you have mapped out and your team has mapped out. That game plan can't be trusted. You want to be in Philadelphia? Fine. We can go work down at the Margate courts. We can go to Sea Isle and work down there and check out those courts if you want. I'll accept that. We'll drive down with you. We'll do the Sixers Beach Bash together. We'll hang out in Stone Harbor and we'll work on the courts out there. If you want to work out and you want to be by the beach, we got plenty of courts. Longport has a great court. It's right on the beach, right? Margate's got courts. They're right there on Jerome Avenue. You can get on your bike, head to the beach after we work out. You want to hang out at a beach town? We got a beach town 1 hour away from here, and we can go down there every day and work on your game. But you will have one of our coaches, shot people, they will map out your plan this summer. You want to go to Wildwood? Great. You want to go to Wildwood Crest? Fantastic. You want to go hang out in Cape May? Have a blast. There is a court that we can work with you on, but you're not going to do this by yourself. That's the ultimatum you have to have if you're the 76ers. Because Ben Simmons can't be trusted that he's going to work on his game with his people the way that you want it done. Kyle Dubray is watching the show on Facebook. He says, trade Ben and get what? His value on defense and playmaking is worth more than the shooter everybody wants. That's an interesting thing, Kyle. I brought this up yesterday. If you trade, let's say you trade Ben Simmons for C.J. McCollum. What C.J. McCollum brings you is a ton of offense. I don't want to say a ton of offense. I think that's egregious. But he brings you a better offensive game than what Ben Simmons does scoring the basketball. But, I mean, he's a turd on the defensive side of the court. Sorry to say. I mean, he's terrible on defense. So watch the game last night. You want C.J. McCollum running around with Trae Young? Because I, for one, don't. That's not going to end well. Why is the Portland Trailblazers, who have both Dame Lillard and C.J. McCollum, two players that everybody out here listening would say, trade Ben Simmons for? Why are they home every single year? They can't defend. Now, McCollum, 40% from three. I think he scores about 23 points a game. Yeah, 23.1. He can score. He can shoot. Can't defend. So is it 220, 221? I'll give you offense. You take defense. You take defense. I'll take offense. And we're in the same spot. Because now we're scoring 113, but we gave up 116. Because the problem with the Sixers was they're not giving up that many points. You give up 103 points in an NBA game, you're doing a good job. The problem is they need C.J. McCollum in addition to Ben Simmons. They don't need the one-for-one swap. They need him in addition to Ben Simmons. That's where the rub is. So we keep trying to find ways to get Ben out of here. No, they got to find ways to give them another player. That's the biggest challenge here is this team needs Ben Simmons to win, but they need another player because of Ben Simmons' limitations. Now you could say, well, that's not fair. That's what it is. I've told you before. I view Ben Simmons as the Dennis Rodman to the Chicago Bulls. They had Michael Jordan, who scored all their points, hit all their big shots, big moment guy. They had Scottie Pippen, who can be that secondary scorer. He was that great defensive player on the wing. And then they had Rodman, who didn't score a lick, but without Rodman, they ain't winning. Because Rodman got every rebound, every loose ball. He did all the dirty work. The problem is the Sixers don't have a Pippen. That's where their issue is. Tobias Harris isn't good enough to be Scottie Pippen. So that means they need another. It's almost like a pitching rotation that has that ace starter, and then their next two guys are both number threes. Tough situation to be in. Because the Sixers have that top-end starter, right? They've got Garrett Cole. The problem is their next guy is Aaron Nola. He's really good when he's facing the Orioles, but when you throw him out there against the Astros, that's not the matchup that you really. 609 403 0973 609 403 0973. Let's go to Jeffrey. He's watching on YouTube. He says, take it for what it's worth. My colleague worked for the Heat for years and said they have had internal discussions about a Ben for Jimmy Butler swap. I'm not taking that for what it's worth at all. I mean, I'm not saying that you're lying. I can't put any stock in that at this point, because why would the Heat trade Jimmy Butler unless they think he's a complete ass and they've had enough of him? And that would be the only thing. But other than that, I can't put that into any stock. I'm not calling you out, Jeff. I'm not saying that your buddy hasn't heard that, but a Ben for Jimmy swap is in my opinion, I mean, look, Jimmy Butler took them to the finals. Do I think Jimmy Butler is a finals level player where he's the best player on the best team? I don't think so. I think Jimmy Butler, put it this way, if the Sixers with this team had Jimmy Butler, like let's say Jimmy Butler, here's the problem. They need, like Danny Green not being there became an issue because being at the game, I saw how the defense sagged off the corner three. And that was a big problem for this team. Danny Green's ability to hit that corner three was totally negated in this series, and it really was noticeable. Jimmy Butler is not a corner three guy. Like the Sixers need that guy. They need the guy that can be in the corner to catch and shoot threes. Why? Because of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, that guy's going to get so many open looks. They didn't think Thibault could hit the three. So they gave him as many open looks as they wanted to, and he just couldn't connect. Neither could George Hill. Neither could anybody else that gave the Hawks gave that corner up to those guys, sagged the defender off. It took painted area away from Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, who with Danny Green out there, Tobias Harris was getting the one-on-ones, the mismatches, because the defender is creeping out towards Green because they have to account for him making 40% of his threes. You know, why doesn't Kevin Durant score 40 points a game in the regular season? Well, the guy on Joe Harris is a couple steps off of Joe Harris in the regular season because he's more concerned about Kevin Durant. Well, in the playoffs, they don't want Joe Harris to catch and shoot and get these wide open looks. So that defender, he creeps his steps more towards Harris so that Harris is insignificant. That's why Harris, the last 2 years in the playoffs, Harris has been terrible because his looks are not the same. And of course, Durant now has Kevin Durant only needs this much, just a crack of extra space. And he just slithers his way through and gets to the basket at will. Truly amazing to watch. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. It is brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan is now open on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township next to Home Depot. Online at mattblattnissan.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Variety of ways to get part of the show. You can give me a buzz at 609-573-ESPN in South Jersey, our 8 Jersey counties. 609-573-3776 in South Jersey and in Delaware, of course. Our friends over in Delaware who can listen to the show. You can text the text board at 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. And, of course, if you're watching the show live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, you can be a part of the live chat. Just leave your comment in the comments section. Like Peter, who says, John Wall, question mark. John Wall a winning player? I mean, he's won Zippo. Not a great defensive player either. Jeremy is watching the show. Can we talk about the bad day PT had yesterday? Jeremy, I'm not aware of the bad day that PT had yesterday. Am I missing something? Did he do something? Did he had a terrible day? He's not on until tomorrow, but I could try to reach out to him, see if he had a bad day. Poor PT. All right, I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Get in touch with us in one of those ways. On the phones, text board, video stream. This is the Sports Bash. We're back here on a Thursday. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. 609-573-3776, 609-573-3776 on the phones. Over on the text board, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. And, of course, if you're watching the show on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, you can leave a comment in the comment section. Let me go to the text board because we have a bunch of those that have been filing in, and I want to read off this. Croce is listening to the show on the radio. Says, I feel like a majority of the fan base wants to trade Ben for some pretty new toy. I'm torn between whether the Sixers will be better off trading him for whoever they get or just roll with it and see if he can commit to using Sixer coaches instead of his brother or whoever he uses. Hell, let him play with the Kiwis in the Olympics and see what he's got. Well, apparently he's not going to play in the Olympics. Part of the reason he's not playing the Olympics apparently is because he is committed to working on his skill sets. I would agree. Like, go out there and play. How do you get better? You play. Now, he needs to work on stuff. There's no question. But can you go to the Olympics, play, and, they have Patty Mills out there. The Australian team is pretty good. They've got a bunch of NBA players on that team, Patty Mills. So the Australian men's basketball team, the Boomers, as they're called, they are one of the, better rosters that participate at I think they won a gold medal recently, not at the Olympics, but at, I don't know, the FIBAs or whatever. So they're one of the better ones. Like, they're one of the better rosters. You've got Aaron Baines, who plays for the Raptors. You've got Dellavedova. You've got Dante Exum's on that team. You've got Josh Green on that team. You've got Joe Ingles on that team. You've got Patty Mills on that team. You've got, I think they are one of the teams that have one of the most NBA players on it. So they have a pretty decent team. Could he have fitted on that team and maybe played a different position? Maybe got an opportunity to play some games where he's not the primary ball handler. That being said, the text message is interesting. I think you're right that people just want to trade for the shiny new toy because they're just tired of this toy, because this is the toy that they asked for. This is the toy that they wanted, and now they're tired of playing with it. Such is life. It used to be you had a player, you had a team, they played together, and that was it. You watched that team kind of grow, and that was it for a 10-year run. They were the guys. Now it's every 2 or 3 years, I want a new team. This team's not good enough. I need new players. Flip them over. This one didn't get me where I wanted to go. There's no more the climb with the core. It's Jordan. It's Pippen. The odd part about the Jordan Pippen thing, they were the two guys. There wasn't really like that the first incarnation, had Horace Grant and Will Perdue and that group. The second group was when Rodman went in there. So they had like two, it was always Jordan and Pippen. When they were losing games, I don't think people were like, when they were losing series, I should say, when they were younger, I don't think people were like, get rid of Jordan, get rid of Pippen. It was the climb. They're gaining from this. Now, the problem is I don't think Sixer fans think that this team is taking anything from these losses. And I agree, because the frustrating part is Ben Simmons, you're not seeing a different Ben Simmons. You're not seeing a guy that took that loss and came back. Joel Embiid, on the other hand, it looked like he took the loss and then came back a better player. I truly think that Joel Embiid looked like a better player this year. Over on the text board, 609-403-0973. Mike, Sixers need to have Ben see a sports psychologist weekly along with working on his shot. I mean, he's got to want to do that. That's a Ben Simmons thing. He has to be the guy that says, I don't think the team can say, hey, you need to do this. He has to be the one that accepts. Now, I think the team should be able to say, you have to work out here. I think they should be well within their right to do that. I don't know that that's a pipe dream or not in today's landscape. But I know this. If we sat down with Rich Paul, his agent, and Ben Simmons sitting across the table from me, and I'm the Philadelphia 76ers, and we're talking about what's next here, okay? What do we got going on here? We understand we have an issue. What is next? And if I'm the Sixers, I say, Ben, we want you here. You are 100% in our plans. We want to build this team around you, Joel, Tobias. However, in order for us to do that, you need to listen to us and you need to work out here. It's no more your brother. It's no more that. It's no more here. It's in Philadelphia this summer. You need to do that. Otherwise, look, that's on you. If you don't want to do that, we think we're going to go ahead and look to move on. And I think the Sixers are well within their rights to do that. And if Ben Simmons truly wants to be great in the city of Philadelphia, I think he needs to say, you know what? It's time. I've had my fun. I've had my summers. I've done all the stuff. I did this. I went there. I dated this girl. I had that Instagram. I had this party. All of it. I now want to be the best basketball player I can be. And when he gets to that point, it's got to be him that says that. Because if he says, I don't really want to hang out in Philadelphia this summer, I need to get away from here. I mean, outside of him saying, yes, I will work with one of your guys. And even that, I would say, you know what? He's still more interested in being in LA, Miami, where else. You want to go hang out in those places? We'll trade you someplace else. How much are you committed to this team in this city? 609-403-0973. Mike, I totally agree. I would prefer to keep Ben if he is willing to stay in Philadelphia to work with the Sixers' preferred trainers, nutritionists. He is too good a talent to just unload. That's over on the text board, 609-403-0973, if you want to jump in on the text board as well. Yeah, that's the problem, is you have this talent that you know, and it's like it teases you. So it's like very frustrating because you have this talent that teases you. It's like the Phillies had Dominic Brown. You remember Dom Brown? God, he was terrible. But the Phillies had Dominic Brown on their team, and you're looking at a situation where, man, this guy is oozing with talent, right? He has so much talent, but he's frustrated. It's like, okay, even forget Dom Brown. Forget Dom Brown. Let's go to Vince Velazquez, for instance, on this current team. They have Vince Velazquez on this team, and they have this guy who every once in a while he dazzles you. Actually, Dom Brown's probably a better one because Vince Velazquez, I don't think was, well, Dom Brown was the number one prospect in all of baseball. He was the number one prospect in all of baseball, right? It wasn't like he was some guy that, wow, he just shot up the system. Where did he come from? No, he was the number one prospect in baseball. So you look at what Dom Brown did when he was with the Phillies. Okay, he's the number one prospect in baseball. This team was an aging team, and they needed a shot of life with a younger player. They call up Dom Brown, and you're like, huh. They yo-yoed him back and forth. He played 35 games. They sent him back. 2011, they came up. They sent him back. 2012, they called him up. They sent him back. And then 2013, they called him up, and he was an all-star. There you go. That's the Dom Brown. Remember how many home runs he hit in the month of May? You're like, see, I knew it. He's got it in him. Unfortunately, Dom Brown never had it in him. Dom Brown was out of baseball 2 years after he made an all-star game. So there's where the Sixers are like, okay, we get a firsthand seat of what this guy does for us every single night. And again, you can take a look at it from this angle. It's that the Phillies, the Sixers, they could trade. Like I said, they could make a swap, Ben Simmons for CJ McCollum. Okay. Everybody I think out there listening would say, okay, I would do that. You're basically saying, I'll give you our defensive stopper for your guy who can score for us. So now instead of losing the game 103-98, you've now lost the game 116-113 because you can't stop them, but you can score a little bit more. 609-403-0973. Mike, how do the Sixers fit Kyle Lowry under the cap? I don't think they can. It would have to be a sign and trade situation, I would imagine, with that. They can't just sign him as a free agent. He makes too much money. The Sixers are in the luxury tax situation. A couple more texts. Mike, what is the best fit for Ben Simmons? Well, we've seen it. Go back to when Joel Embiid's not here and he's driving and kicking. Those teams, how many games did they win without Joel Embiid? People act like Ben Simmons is horrible. He can't play. When Joel Embiid was out, he won games in the playoffs without Joel Embiid. You can build a team around what Ben does well. Drive, kick, let somebody else shoot. Work on that aspect of the game. The problem is the Sixers have a roster that's not really drive and kick worthy. A Portland could do it. A Houston with their style of play where they just jack up three after three after three. Now, they don't have a lot of talent out there, but that's the kind of style, where he is kind of, running the show, kicking it out. And those teams don't really need him to do all that much offensively. They want him to take the attention in the paint and then kick it out. What else we got? 609-403-0973. Mike, what about a trade for Kemba Walker? Walker I like. The problem with him is the knee. I don't know that I can depend on that. The knee with Kemba Walker was a problem. He didn't play in the playoffs last year. He missed the playoffs for I think he missed the playoff this year, and I want to say last year. I'm a big Kemba Walker guy. I think he's a great scorer. He would be very good with Joel Embiid, but the knee problem that he has does worry me. So I'd have to really do my homework on him. Plus, 31 years old. Kemba's not a great defensive player, but he can score. There's no question about that. 609-403-0973. Keep your text messages coming. 609-403-0973. Keith Smith in 20 minutes. I'll open up the phones on the other side. 609-403-0973 on the text board. 609-403-0973. And if you want to give us a call, it's 609-573-3776. 609-573 ESPN 3776. If you're watching the show live on the video stream, you can leave your comment in the comment section. I see many of you doing that as well. I'll be back with more Sports Bash. right, back here on a Thursday. So much to discuss today, including the Phillies and the Mets. We'll get into that with Frank in about 40 minutes from now. Also, Keith Smith in 20. So we'll open up the phone lines right now for you guys if you want to jump on board. This is the time to get in. 609-573-3776 in South Jersey and in Delaware. 609-573-3776. And, of course, you can hit us up on the text board, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. This one's interesting. Edward Brady says, what about Simmons for Brandon Ingram? Ingram is an interesting one. He's a great shooter. I like Ingram's game. Oddly enough, he hasn't been to the playoffs with any team he's ever been a part of. Why is that? Well, he's not a great defensive player. That's one problem. But he does shoot it, man. Brandon Ingram can shoot. I can tell you that much. This is he would be an interesting fit with Ben Simmons. I don't know that if you take one over the other, you're just essentially saying, okay, I'm adding a scorer, I'm getting rid of this. Brandon Ingram's a guy who, you know, when you talk about he's 23 points a game, 38%, he can shoot. He's a good shooter. But I don't know that he doesn't offer anything else really. Those kind of guys really are kind of interesting. But that's not a terrible one. It's funny because you had the chance to make that pick when you took Simmons 1 and Ingram 2. If people wanted defense, they would have been saying Rodman was the MVP every year. Well, that doesn't make any sense. They didn't say Rodman was the MVP. What they did say that he was an integral part of a team that won 3 championships. They didn't say he was the MVP of the league, but they said he was the best rebounder. They didn't say he was the MVP, but you know what they said at the end of his career? That he was a Hall of Famer. They said he was a Hall of Famer is what they said. They didn't say he was the MVP. They said he was a Hall of Famer. That's on another level above MVP. You are a Hall of Famer. You are one of the very best that ever play the game. So if people wanted defense, they would have been saying Rodman was the MVP. No, they would say we needed what he brought to our team to win a championship. The Chicago Bulls needed the skill set that he brought to win a title. Without his skill set, they don't win a championship. We only look at things mostly based on offense. But the Bulls were able to win that title because they had a Hall of Fame rebounder and defender on their team. And he got paid pretty well, by the way, to do that. That was part of their recipe. Jordan, Pippen, Rodman. Jordan, big shots. Jordan, killer instinct. Pippen be the second banana. And Rodman, take the other team's best player out, be the instigator. That was their formula to win a championship. We just want a guy that can score. Now, the free throw shooting, that needs to be talked about. That is 100% an issue. If that can't be fixed, then you got to move him. If he can't fix that and become a credible free throw shooter, you have to move him. You can't play a 33% shooting guy in the biggest moment. But again, we had no evidence that he was going to shoot 33% from the line. If he doesn't shoot 33% and he just shoots what he normally shoots, the Sixers would have won that series. 609-403-0973. Look, they're in a tough spot here. Pat's on the beach in Sea Isle City. All right, Pat, let's see what you got. I wonder if you've had any happy hour Friday cold ones while you're on the beach in Sea Isle City. It's becoming more and more clear that this Phillies team is probably – he's going Phillies in this text. I'll get to that in a little bit then. I want to keep with what we're going here. All right, the problem is Ben Simmons is so terrified of the free throw line, he won't drive and kick anymore. That's from Mike in Mays Landing. Something to be said for that, Mike. Something to be said for that. That part of his game has been eradicated because of his mindset of, I don't think I can get to the line. I don't want to get to the line. Here's another one. Mike, love for Ben to stay here, but people overlook how important he is defensively and on the run. Needs another year with Doc. If there is a trade, what do you think about Fox in Sacramento? I like De'Aaron Fox. I'm a big De'Aaron Fox guy. The problem with De'Aaron Fox is similar. he plays about as much defense as you do there, Mike, in Mays Landing. Not a great defensive player. Can score. Love his ability to score. Not a great shooter. 32% from three. But he's the kind of guy that I would say is a good compliment to be. Like, if I'm switching him, I think you're kind of status quo. But if I can get him in addition, that's the difference. Glenn and EHT, you're on 97.3. What's up, Glenn?
Yo, Mike, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I think you're overstating the defensive thing. I mean, I know he's a good player on defense, but I just don't know if that scoring is what wins in the NBA. I mean, seriously, now you need people who can score. He needs to instinctually take certain shots at certain times. It's amazing. I went back and looked at some of that summer league stuff, and he's taking shots. I'm thinking, wow, the person who talked about the psychologist makes me think he really is maybe suppressing something. I thought about that yesterday.
Right.
I'm thinking, how do you not just instinctually, as a basketball player, take shots at certain times in the game? I mean, he should have dunked that ball the other night, right? How's that just not instinctually for him to just go up and dunk it? Even if a guy is there, doesn't matter. It's just it's got to be in his mind. It's crazy to me.
Right, exactly. So, but here's the difference is, like, you're right. Like, offense, you have to be able to score in this league. The thing is, though, he doesn't have to be able to score. He just has to not be a hindrance from scoring. You know what I'm saying? Like, during the regular season,
he has to be a threat, though, Mike. He has to be an option, or you'll have Gallinari, or you'll have his guy sagging down, messing with the spacing. He has to, at some point in time, be able to take those shots just to move people.
I agree.
He can't just.
Here's the problem. I really wish we would have saw what this series would have looked like with Danny Green, because I really feel that Green, he was the best three-point shooter in the league from the corner three this past season. He was number one, the highest percentage in the entire league. When they lost that, the spacing in the paint in that corner, that guy sagged off of Thibault, he sagged off of Hill, he sagged off of whoever was in that corner, and it created a problem down in that painted area.
On top of them sagging off of Simmons. I mean, seriously, it's just instinctually, Mike, how does he not shoot the basketball? If we just all go out to the court and we roll the ball out, we just start shooting, right? I mean, how does he not do it instinctually in a game?
I don't know if you heard me talk to Jimmy Lynam yesterday, and everybody, I've had Jimmy Lynam, you're a coach. How could you watch him make those elbow jumpers in the summer league and not say to him, Ben, where is that? How come I can't get that in a real live game? I don't understand it.
But you think at this level, why would a coach even have to, Mike? It's amazing, man, when you think about it.
But does that not tell you? I know we all think we know everything. We know more than these guys. Someone who is at that level, his first coaching staff, now his second coaching staff. And by the way, in college, he never shot the three either. So all of these coaches, none of them had said to him, why are you not shooting?
Listen, and you keep mentioning three, Mike. Don't mention three. Just shoot the ball. You know what I'm saying? I don't want him to be Steph. He doesn't got to be KD. He doesn't have to be James Harden.
I agree.
You got to take that elbow shot.
I agree. Man. I'm just saying, I say three only because I see him practice the three so often that I know if he just took two of them a game by accident, he'd make one. He'd almost be shooting 50%.
I just can't believe he doesn't instinctually do it, Mike. That's what makes me think it's in his head. It's in his mind.
Yep. Oh, I agree.
Mike, I'll talk to you now.
I agree with that. I think that is one of the bigger things that has to be considered by the Sixers is, has this infiltrated into his subconscious that he can no longer perform this task of free throw shooting? What is Brandon Ingram somebody asked me what Ingram is from the line. I'm going to look at Fox first. He's 71%, by the way. Fox is not a good free throw shooter. I believe that Ingram is a better free throw shooter. I was going to say, yeah, he's pretty good. He's almost 90% from the line. So you got Ingram. Although I will say this, regarding Fox, I believe gets to the line more because he's a dribble drive kind of guy, whereas Ingram gets to the line 5 times per game, which is about how many times Ben goes to the line, mainly because he doesn't want to go to the line. And then you have De'Aaron Fox, who gets there 7 times. See, De'Aaron Fox, not a great shooter, but he'll get there more. And Ingram, the other guy, he does get to the line a lot. Ben doesn't get to the line. He should be getting to the line 10 times a game, minimum. 10 times a game. I've been saying that for a couple of years now. He needs to get to the line 10 times per game. And if he's only shooting 60% from the line, that's still 6 more points per game. That's where Ben Simmons goes from a 15-point-a-game guy to a 20-point-a-game guy, 21-point-a-game guy. We had, Isaiah Thomas. Josh played that on game night about a week ago, and he said that's how his scoring average goes up. You want him to score more points? It's never going to be from shooting. It's going to be from going to the line, and he just needs to go there 10 times a game and just work through it through the regular season. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Some more text messages are coming in on the text board, and we will get to those as well. Let me get some video comments up here and see what everybody is saying on the sometimes the video side makes me laugh because it's like people are having their chats with each other. It's like they're responding to someone else in the chat, so it's like them going back and forth. So I'm trying to find the comment that started the chat. You know what I'm saying? Jason Goldstein is watching on YouTube. He says, how many times do you have to say the same thing every year? If Ben this and that, no shooting improvement since he showed up 5 years ago. Now, that's a fair comment. But my point on this is, Jason, you're right. If Ben Simmons says, I want to do the same workout with the same guys that I've done, that's when I say, nope, I'm cutting you off there. If you work with me and my plan, and then it doesn't work, now I know I have to cut ties with you because I have now supervised you. I have now instructed you. I have now implemented a plan, and you're still not doing it. That tells me this is unfixable in this situation. If you go out and do it with your group of guys and you come back and you don't implement it, that's shame on me. Fool me once, shame on, you know what I'm saying? Shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I've now been fooled multiple times. I've let you go work with your brother multiple times. And I saw your little videos and your TikToks and your Instagrams shooting the basketball. All right, it looks like he's going to come back a new player. And hasn't worked. So I've given you the 4 chances. You had all your fun. Now you're going to come work with me. And if we play a game and I don't see you implementing any of the stuff that we worked on, now I got to turn my back on you. Like the Godfather. Here's your money. I'll pay you what I owe you. And now I have to turn my back on you. Sorry. Because I trusted that we were family here. We worked together on this. But you went out and sold yourself to somebody else. And you valued that more than what I brought? No. Now I got to turn my back on you. Peter's watching on YouTube. Peter says, I love Ben's talent, but I don't trust he'll put in the effort. He's had the same problem since he was at LSU. His game hasn't developed in 5 years. I think he is content where he's at. Peter, I agree. What you're saying is essentially what I just said. The Sixers have let him go work out with who he wants to work out with, and it hasn't worked. So if they let him do it again, shame on them. If they work with him and he doesn't improve his game, they can say, we supervised him. We watched with our own 2 eyes what he did this offseason, and he's still not doing it. And at that point, I have to turn my back on you. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Kyle says, Ben Simmons is Scottie Pippen without the shooting. There's a lot to be said for that. I mean, Scottie's a heck of a better offensive player, and I'm not the biggest Scottie fan in the world, but he is exponentially a better offensive player scoring-wise than Ben. They both kind of handle the ball, can pass. I think Ben's got a better floor court vision, thank you, Josh, than Scottie Pippen does. Jason Goldstein says, in a 7-game series, teams can take away what Ben does well. He can't shoot and just won't shoot, and Ingram would be a better fit with Embiid. problem with Ingram is he doesn't put the ball on the floor all that much. He's a very good shooter. I like Ingram. I think Ingram would be I would trade Tobias for Ingram. How about that? I wouldn't mind doing that because I think Ingram's a way better shooter than Tobias is. Although the percentages would say otherwise. I think Tobias was 40% from three this year or something like that, 39 maybe, and I think Ingram was about 38. But I like Ingram. I don't know that he's the best. The best fits with Embiid's are your Dame Lillard, your guys who pick and roll. Trae Young and Joel Embiid, my God, that would be preposterous. You wouldn't be able to stop that at all. The guys who can put the ball and pull up from anywhere. They're the best kind of guys to play with a big man. And that's why, you get a big man like Clint Capella who doesn't do anything. He's just a roll man. That's it. That's what they need to use Ben Simmons. This is the roll man. You don't want to do that either, apparently, because he's afraid to get fouled. Keith Smith, we'll ask him to make sense of all of this. Woj, new report on Ben Simmons today. I'll get Keith Smith's take on it and what it means coming up next on the Sports Bash, where you could call Jenkins for heating and air conditioning installation service and maintenance, plumbing, or drain cleaning service, 609-641-6440 or JenkinsPlumbingHeating.com. Don't forget, text board is open, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. That's the text board. You can give me a call, 609-573-3776, 609-573-3776. If you're watching the show live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, you can leave a message in the comments section on the live chat. I'm back with NBA writer Keith Smith next. Big game tonight, game 2. If the Clippers lose, they'll be down 0-3. Chris Paul will return tonight from the health and safety protocol, so they're going to get Paul back as well, although Cameron Payne has been quite fine without him. We'll talk about the NBA playoffs, but the NBA offseason is really shaping up. By the way, the Olympic team looks like that's settled as well. The Olympics are almost here. My gosh, how about that? All right, Keith Smith joins us here. And, of course, you can follow Keith at Keith Smith NBA. He does a great job. Spot Rack. He can give us some insight on the Celtics as well. That trade last week. We got a lot to talk with Keith, so let's bring him here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. What's going on, Keith? How you been, pal?
Hey, I'm good. Yeah, a lot going on in the NBA, even in the middle of the playoffs. Everything else seems like it's happening too.
It sure does. And let's talk about what's going on here. Over at ESPN, Adrian Wojnarowski is reporting that the Sixers and Ben Simmons' team ongoing talks about his future. Now, he didn't request a trade, but when you hear something like this happening, do the signs point towards more likely that that's the road that this could go down?
Yeah, I think so. Generally, there's not a whole lot of reason to be meeting with the representatives for a player you've already have signed and isn't eligible for an extension or anything like that, unless, there's some level of unhappiness. So my guess is after a lot of comments were made following their, playoff loss, series loss that about, Ben Simmons by Doc Rivers, by some of his teammates and the like, that the Sixers, Ben Simmons agents and him want some answers as far as, hey, Sixers, what are we doing here? Are we, still together in on this, for the foreseeable future?
In your mind, is it better for these two sides just to say, look, it's not working here? Or do you think that it can work in Philadelphia for Ben Simmons?
Yeah, I'm starting to get this sense that, much like I think we talked about back in the day with Markelle Fultz, I don't know that it's ever going to happen for Ben Simmons in Philadelphia. And that's not a Philadelphia thing by any means. It's just sometimes guys go so far down one path that it's really difficult to picture it kind of turning around and getting back to a really good place. So I think that there is a chance, that it might be best for both sides to move along. Now, Philly shouldn't just be moving him to move him. It should be the idea of, all right, let's, make something happen here if it makes sense for us trade-wise to do something. And then, for Simmons, of course, it's not the worst thing in the world to move along and get a fresh start somewhere else.
Obviously, the next question would be value. I mean, pennies on the dollar. Can they get something of value? What level of player? I mean, what in your mind is out there for the Sixers to explore?
Yeah, I'm not going to go as far as, I saw people suggesting it's one of the worst contracts in the NBA and those kind of things. That's about 2 or 3 bridges way too far for me. But I do think, this is a guy where there are questions about, is the offense ever going to get there? Because if it's not, then you have to really change your perspective. And the reality is, no matter how good of a defensive player you are, if you're not a capable offensive player that can be on the floor during crunch time of playoff games, that's going to cap your value quite a bit. So I think ultimately what we're kind of looking at here is with the with Ben Simmons is he's got to get to a position where with another team or with Philadelphia where they can we can afford you not to shoot the ball. We can play you in a playmaking role and those kind of things. But I think his days as a point guard on offense are probably over. But a secondary playmaker from a power forward position or something like that, I think that's kind of his role going forward. But then that becomes what is that worth trade value? Well, it's not worth just giving them away, but it's also not going to return you a incredible package either.
Yeah, I know that the whole point guard thing has kind of been discussed and, maybe getting him off the ball. And some people will say, all right, well, what other spot can you play for a guy who doesn't shoot? And one of the things he excels in is when he does have the ball in his hand in the open court and all that kind of stuff. So what is the best kind of fit? What kind of roster, what kind of team around Ben Simmons works?
Yeah, I think what you need to do at this point is, as I've been kind of, saying, is you're not going to build your team around Ben Simmons, but if you're going to bring him in, you need to build your team with his skill set in mind. And what I mean by that is you're going to play him probably at the 4 offensively now. And what you're going to do is you're going to put him in positions where there's going to be a whole lot of shooters around him, and you're going to play him as an off-ball guy, somebody that's a screener, somebody who is getting the ball off of, a couple moves, and then he's going to, make plays from there. And I think that, becomes really important, because if you're putting him in a position to be your primary ball handler, your primary creator, I don't care who else is there. Your offense is always going to struggle and have a cap on it because he just won't shoot the ball. There's a quote going around from Scottie Pippen now. I believe it was in GQ, where Scottie Pippen said the difference between Ben Simmons and Giannis isn't afraid to be humiliated. He'll go out there and he'll shoot air balls and miss other things. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but he's not in the end of the world. Where Simmons, if he misses a free throw or thinks he's going to get fouled, he's just going to start passing the ball and passing things up. And that there's a lot of truth to that. There is a lot of things in there. And I always say you can build an offense around a bad shooter. You can't build one around a non-shooter.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, because so many similarities between Giannis and Ben. They're both big guys who can handle the ball, can take the ball to the basket. But you're right. Giannis isn't afraid to shoot. Even if he's 0 for 10, he'll just keep doing it because he wants to give the other team that perception that he might. Now, they might sag all the way off of him. Then that's when he says, all right, I'll just crank it into 4th gear and I'll try to run right through you. When if I have to get to the line, I'll get to the line. Now, sometimes the limitations of his offense late in a game is a problem. But if Ben Simmons just essentially said, I will mirror my offensive game after Giannis, is that something that they could win with?
Yeah, it's you can. I think you can win. I mean, clearly, the Bucks have won. They've gotten there with an offense like that. It's just what you can't have on the floor is guys who it was so telling of the entire Ben Simmons experience. And I'm going to go right to the player, but he knows where he passed up in a dunk. Because maybe he thought he was going to get fouled or something along those lines. That cannot happen. You need to at least make those plays where you can score. And I go back to, I retweeted this a couple days ago. There was a tweet going around, Eric Fawcett, who does a nice job covering basketball primarily at the college level, where he put together a clip of Simmons at LSU taking jump shots. And I remember, and I added my thoughts on this, looking at Ben Simmons and saying, wow, all right, he's probably never going to be a high volume or a great 3-point shooter, but 10 to 15 feet, no problem. Couple dribbles, pull up. That's definitely what he can do, mixing the occasional 3 and off we go. And now we're in a position where he won't even do that now. And at that point, what value does that guy really necessarily have on the floor for you, especially late in games? Because then the defense is just going to say, hey, forget it. I'll turn my back to you entirely. I'm going to mess up your passing lanes and everything else. Because we always used to say, if he won't take jump shots, at least he'll drive really hard. And if you're playing off him, he gets ahead of steam and he can do his thing. But if he's not going to do that either, that's almost a completely useless offensive basketball player.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because there's some video of him doing, shooting elbow jumpers in Summer League. When he first got drafted by the Sixers, he came right out and was shooting elbow jumpers. And by the way, had pretty good form, swish after swish. I mean, he's a guy that, look, is he going to be the best guy in the league? But Jason Kidd was a horrible 3-point shooter when he got in the league and became one of the top, 15 all-time 3-point shooters just because he kept working. That's the big question. Around basketball, do people think Ben Simmons wants to be great?
Yeah, and there's that question where people are looking at it and saying, okay, we know Shaq was not a good free throw shooter, but you got every year the stories about these are all the different things Shaq is trying to fix his free throw shooting. You would get that, with Giannis, it was, all right, is this guy ever going to shoot? And then the next thing you know was, all right, this guy is now, taking the occasional jump shots and the like. So I don't think there is any way he's ever going to become a big time volume 3-point shooter or a good 3-point shooter. But you got to at least, get to a point where going to the free throw line, you're not terrified of getting fouled, that it's so much that it changes the rest of your game. If that's where you could get to, well, then you could definitely win with that. But I'm starting to doubt, because we haven't seen it happen yet, that's even where we'll get to either.
All right, Keith Smith covers the NBA. Let's get a couple of news and notes around the league here. Let's go to Boston. They've hired a coach, Ime Udoka, who was in Philadelphia, San Antonio, and he's now the head coach of the Boston Celtics. So give us a little insight on that hire.
Yeah, I think Boston did pretty good here with this, without having any assurity that a first-time head coach is going to be great. I think they really did well. So what the Celtics are getting here was they prioritized somebody who could really connect and build relationships with their players, as well as kind of be that bridge between the front office and the players, the other coaches and the players, and that's what they got in Udoka. He's famously known for his relationship building, being a connector, and those kind of things. He's well thought of as one of the best defensive coaches out there. There's a lot of people who have given him credit over the years. He already has at least some level of pre-existing relationships with several guys on the Celtics, some of them from their Team USA experience, and Al Horford from their year together in Philadelphia. So I think they did really, really well with this hire, and I think it was an important one for Brad Stevens to get somebody that they really wanted to get in there, because I think that makes a lot of sense for them going forward with what they want to do.
Give me what is the message with the Al Horford trade? Is this a monetary move, or is this a move to get them back to a competitive? Do they think they can compete in the East because of that? I know Sixer fans might be like, "Huh? Wait, what? Al Horford?" But what is the message from Boston with this?
Yeah, so the Celtics felt like they were going to be right back in contention, even if they didn't do anything. They very much, without completely blaming injuries, the feeling has been they were just as snake bit as anybody was this year, which dropped them in the standings, which gave them a very difficult first round matchup. And they feel like almost any other first round matchup they could have been competitive, other than the Nets. So they feel like they were going to be right back in it. Now, when they go to the Al Horford move, it is primarily financially motivated. What this did was this freed up about $7 extra million for them in flexibility this year, which they were going to be dancing right around the luxury tax. They're thought to be 10 to 12 million over the taxes, their absolute cap that they want to pay for a team right now. So now they've got some flexibility to re-sign Evan Fournier, do some different things. Then going forward, they have a really, increased flexibility. The genius of that contract that Philadelphia signed Horford to is that last year is only partially guaranteed. So if you get to a position where the Celtics, and there's a lot of confusion about this. Yes, you probably initially saw if Philadelphia makes the finals or wins the finals, the guarantees increase and become fully guaranteed, but it transfers to his new team. So now with Boston, and you're happy to say, hey, we made the finals, we'll fully guarantee it and we'll move on there. But on the court, they came to a belief of Kemba Walker, was he going to be healthy enough to really impact winning, and was he going to be a guy that you could build a winner around in the playoffs? Whereas Horford, even not being the player he once was, still a pretty good stretch big, still defended pretty well over the last couple of years, and he's about the same rebounder he's always been. So they feel pretty good about, hey, we're in a good place with Horford on the court. But the main thing was about that flexibility on the cap sheet this year and very much the next year moving forward.
Let me ask you this: if you are in the playoffs still, you're not able to make a trade, right? I mean, how are these trades being done? Why it almost seems unfair that these teams are allowed to make these off-season moves while there are teams still playing.
Yeah, no, it's always been this way. We usually get a trade every other year or so at this point in the season. As soon as your season is over, you're in off-season mode.
Wow.
Now, there are restrictions. You can't trade a guy who's going to be a pending free agent. That ends at the trade deadline. You can't trade anything. It has to work in this current league year. The salary matching has to work because you're still working off of this year's salaries. So that's the difference there, and that's why that trade was done and made official and all those things. But what you can't do is you can't work on a sign and trade or trade a guy who's going to be a free agent or anything like that. But yeah, as soon as your season is over, trades are allowed. They're usually not this big, I guess is the best way to put it, with name guys like this. It's usually something smaller, but usually about every other year we get a trade while the playoffs are still going on.
All right, a couple more as we take a look at this NBA, the offseason. Rick Carlisle is back in Indiana as the head coach there. I mean, that's a team that seems like it's kind of, it's funny because Nate McMillan was there, and he got let go because they didn't think that he was the guy. Now he's in Atlanta, and here's Carlisle. So now you got Rick Carlisle trying to elevate this Pacers team, which just kind of seems to be one of those teams stuck in the middle.
Yeah, and there's expected to be some roster changes coming in Indiana. One of the things that, talking to various folks around the league, is a lot of people expect them to very heavily explore splitting up Miles Turner and DeMontis Sabonis. Likely Sabonis would be the one who stays. He's now been a 2-time All-Star, and maybe Turner gets moved. I think they're realizing that pairing together, two starters, just isn't going to work in the NBA the way it comes together now. We know TJ Warren has gone through various points where he wasn't overly happy. Sounds like a lot of that was related to Nate Bjorkgren, but we'll see what happens. There's been a lot of talk. Could they explore trading Malcolm Brogdon? And then they've got, a couple other guys on the roster that look a little interesting. So I think Rick Carlisle comes in as a coach that and trust, is a pretty good coach, and you're going to, have some pretty good success with, because his Dallas teams are always pretty good. And then whatever roster change comes, but that was the first step in what, might be a pretty big offseason change for the Pacers.
All right, tonight you got Clippers and Suns. You're getting Chris Paul back. You got to feel good if you're Phoenix. I know you're going on the road here, but how do we see? I mean, do they the Clippers, hold their home court and tie this thing back up? This is the second time they've been in this situation. Really, the third time, I think.
Yeah, every time we think we know what's going on with the Clippers, it's like, nope, we're going to flip the script on you. So I think at that point, you just kind of take what comes. But yeah, they're in a tough spot. They're going to get a bump from being home. Everybody gets that bump from that first playoff game home. But without Kawhi Leonard for them and Chris Paul returning for the Suns, that makes it really, really difficult for them. They're going to have a hard time keeping up. And for the Suns, I think this is really important, because even if, they let's say, they lose this game but are able to close it out in 5 or whatever, you get Chris Paul back on the floor for a few games. And what that's able to do is get his rhythm back, get him back ready to go before you're in the NBA Finals. So I think the Suns are looking pretty good for them to advance. But, in the end, we'll see. The Clippers, like I said, every time we think we haven't figured out, they go the other way on us.
Yeah, it's been crazy. And then, of course, you got Atlanta. I don't know. I'm not surprised that they won that first game. I think this Atlanta team, they just have a nice they're put together really well. I mean, do they have like that secondary star player? Not really, but they know their roles, they fit their roles, and they have a superstar leading the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Trae Young, 100% a superstar. There's still people want to scream, he's overrated, he's not that good. I don't know how, we're still, having that conversation after the last series he had, and then the game 1 he had in this series. He, absolutely is a, superstar level player. But I think when you look at that Hawks team, I like what you said. They're well put together. Their starting 5 is pretty good. And they're missing DeAndre Hunter, who's one of their kind of key, versatile defensive players. But then you have Danilo Gallinari coming off your bench. That's, really tough. Most teams struggle to match that. You've got Solomon Hill, who is kind of an afterthought player, but he's out there giving them good defensive minutes. Lou Williams is a solid veteran on their bench. And the biggest thing is their mix of veterans and then young players, they just are not afraid at all. They're going to come in. They're going to play their game. They don't really care who you are. Trae Young's out there throwing off the backboard alley-oops in, crunch time of a really close playoff game. That just tells me we're going to do everything we want to do out here. And right now, the world is kind of theirs.
He's been fun to watch. They unfortunately, yes, they beat the Sixers, eliminated them, but they have been fun to watch. They do it the right way. I love the energy that Collins and Capella give. They get every offensive board. I think that was a huge difference in the Sixers series. They get those offensive boards. They get a lot of second chances.
Yeah, they just keep coming. They, you kind of think, all right, we did our job. Trae Young missed, Herter missed, Bogdanovich missed, Gallinari missed. But then Collins and Capella, if you don't get a body on them, they're going to get on that board, and you may get a body on one of them, and the other one is the one who sneaks in. I think John Collins, he had a couple struggles in the Knicks game, but I think over the Sixers series and now against the Bucks, this is a guy who off a strong regular season, a strong year last year as a third-year player, he's playing himself into a ton of money. He said this past offseason, I think I'm a max player. That's where my head is at. And I think now you may see, a team come forward and say, you know what, we can do that because we think if we get the right guys around you, we're ready to go. So, yeah, I think he is, in a position where he's going to get himself, very, very handsomely paid this summer.
All right, we'll end with this. We know that the Simmons stuff is so high on the list here. Are there guys under contract that you have your eye on that could be traded this offseason?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a lot of guys. What the sense is around the league right now is because we're in a position where there's not a ton of cap space out there, that the ways to make improvement might be via trade. So we talked about, right, Simmons, of course, is a guy. Kristaps Porzingis, the Mavs are gonna explore that market. I think you might see the Memphis Grizzlies with a handful of their role players. So Kyle Anderson, their backup guards, I think they're going to be involved. Portland is a team everybody's got their eyes on. Is this the offseason they finally split up Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum? Yusuf Nurkic has been a little weird with some of his comments out there. The Denver Nuggets, can they afford to keep that team together long-term, knowing Michael Porter Jr. is about to get paid? I already talked about the Pacers, the Chicago Bulls. There's a sense of, Thad Young, Tomas Satoransky. Would they go that direction? Could they even move, some of their other guys that are interested there? Is some team going to make them a massive offer for Zach LaVine? So I think there's a lot of trade opportunities coming, and I think if you're the very best teams in the league, the best way to move forward might be via trade. One thing I'm also going to throw it out at you is a lot of people are looking at, and I've been talking about this extensively, I think the Golden State Warriors may really, if they decide, we can do this thing and spend a ton of money one more year, they have two very good first-round picks. They have, 6 and 14, I believe, or 7 and 14 in the first round. They have James Wiseman's salary. They can sign and trade Kelly Oubre Jr. They have an opportunity to put some salaries together and go get a superstar player if that player becomes available and make one more run at this, because they've already shown that there's no barrier to how much money they'll spend. And this is their last year under contract with Stephen Curry right now to make another major run at winning a title. So I think there's a chance they may go really, really big this summer.
That should be a very interesting team. You mentioned Golden State to keep an eye on. They got 2 picks in the top 15 of the draft as well. So you got all that. Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. Follow him for all the NBA offseason stuff. Spotrac.com. And of course, he right here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Thank you, Keith.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We will continue with Keith throughout the NBA playoffs, the NBA Finals, and the NBA Draft right here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up next hour, football for Adam Kaplan's in the house. We will get his take on the Eagles' 53-man roster defensive side of the ball. Also, Frank Close at 4:40, so in a little under an hour from now, we'll talk a little bit about the Phils and the Mets. They got a big weekend. Speaking of the Phils and the Mets, you can hear the Phillies and the Mets this Saturday on 97.3 ESPN. The coverage starts at 2:30 here on 97.3 ESPN. Also, what else I got tonight? Oh, do you remember for June 24th? Got some goodies today. You're going to want to stick around for that. How about Dave Hackstall, the former Flyer coach? He's the new coach of the Seattle Kraken. The Seattle Kraken has taken a page out of the San Francisco Giants book. Everybody in Philly blamed Gabe Kapler. They're now the best team in baseball. So I imagine the Kraken are saying everybody blamed Hackstall. Let's just pick him up because those people are idiots over there. It couldn't be It couldn't be the coach's fault. Dave Hackstall is the new head coach of the Seattle Kraken. What a weird – where the hell did they – I mean, he was like an assistant coach the last couple of years. I mean, it just seems like a bizarro retread. How about Dave Hackstall is now a retread head coach? Is he going to be the guy that gets like 4 head coaching jobs in the NHL? Dave Hackstall? God almighty, that's crazy. All right, Sports Pass Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Download the free mobile app to your phone in the Google Play, Apple Store. Also, you can hit us up on the text board, 609-403-0973. I have a Phillies text that I started earlier from Pat. I will answer that question, Pat, coming up next. All right, 352. Pat is listening to the show on the beach in Sea Isle. He says, it's becoming more and more clear that the Phillies team is probably not going to make the playoffs. It needs to be dismantled. What does this franchise do? Dombrowski wasn't coming here to rebuild, but that's really what needs to be done. If I was Middleton, I'd blow it up and give Eric Neander a blank check to rebuild the Skelling, Miners, and Major League team. Blow it up. Well, Pat, I think that you're right. Dombrowski was not here to rebuild this thing. So what he's got to do is figure out creative ways to possibly pair off his top assets. That's not Bryce Harper. It's the Rhys Hoskins of the world. It's possibly Aaron Nola. It might even be JT Realmuto, who I don't think he'll be able to trade. He's got to try his best to make every single phone call to see what kind of level of interest those guys have and what they can bring back in return. And when he's trying to get something back in return, the question is, does he go prospect route and just say, look, you're here for 13 years, Bryce. For the next 2 years, we're going to try to get the top level prospect that we can. I don't think that's possible, though. I don't think they're going to trade Rhys Hoskins to get back somebody's top prospect in their organization. That's your problem. The value that you have within your organization. So that way is going to be very difficult. The other way that they could possibly do this, and I don't know that you could do this, I mean, really, is you say to Aaron Nola, you try to trade Aaron Nola, you try to trade Zach Eflin, and you see how much you can get back for those guys because everybody's going to be looking for pitching. And you just try to get major league ready players, and then next year in the offseason try to build the pitching staff back up. But that's not a good – they don't – look, put it this way. They don't have a good blueprint to fix this thing. So when you say dismantle, you're talking about really dismantling in terms of breaking it back down to the studs. Because if you trade Gene Segura, D.D. Gregorius, Andrew McCutchen, that group of guys, you're not really getting anything back in return to help fix this team. And I don't know how you can go to Bryce Harper and say, we're breaking this thing down. We just signed you to a 13-year deal. He doesn't want to be a part of a team that's at the bottom of the basement. You know, Bryce Harper said something yesterday. Hey, we got to win 9 out of 10, figure out a way to win our home games, figure out a way to win more games on the road, figure out how to beat the teams we should beat, figure out the teams that – guess what? You're the team that the other team's saying we have to beat them because they're not very good. You have become the team that the other good teams are saying we've got to beat Phillies. Football at 4 with Adam Kaplan, 53, defense, next. All right, it's time for Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash, and it is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. A new one dropped today at 6 a.m., and you can listen to that with Jeff Mosher and this man right here. He is Adam Kaplan. They form the Inside the Birds podcast Mondays and Thursdays, 6 a.m., You can listen to a new edition of the Inside the Birds podcast and everything else on their platform this offseason as well. I know Adam's got the Twitch channel doing NFL talk, Eagles conversation, and more. And, of course, here on Football at 4. What's going on, Adam?
Mike, good to be with you. Yeah, the Steelers, this is surprising. We just had a big news item here. The Steelers cut their best lineman, David DeCastro. I don't understand why they did that. That to me, is very surprising. I don't know if he was asked to take a pay cut or not, but that was a stunner to me. That just came over. They just announced it. So that just happened. Not that the Eagles need him, but Steelers released one of the better guards in the league and who certainly be a Hall of Famer, and David DeCastro.
All right. It's funny because we were just talking about all the NBA crazy news that has happened. And it's like the NFL said, hey, we need a little bit of pub too. Somebody do something. I'm sure that's not why they ended up doing it, but you're right. Yep. That Steelers team's interesting. That division's really interesting, actually. I think a lot of people think the Browns are now the favorites, and because the Steelers with their quarterback. So I heard somebody say yesterday that Roethlisberger's the worst quarterback in that division.
Well, look, Baker Mayfield improved. Now, Joe Burrow is coming off a torn ACL, so let's not forget about that. Lamar Jackson did not play as well as he did the year before, but now we've got a full offseason, or relatively a full offseason, and we'll have a training camp and a 3-game preseason for the Ravens. He should improve. And Ben Roethlisberger last year was a check-down quarterback. Everything was short. Ben was asked about it recently, about why they weren't throwing the ball downfield. He kind of indicated that his elbow felt good after the surgery, but when you come back from a surgery like that, you're not going to be your normal self. And so this year, and they remember, Steelers changed their offensive coordinator, so things are going to change with their offense this season.
All right. On the latest edition of the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can check out on all podcasting platforms, Adam and Jeff took a look at the 53-man roster on Monday of the offense. Today we're going to kind of focus in on what the defense might look like. And, of course, Jonathan Gannon, he is the new defensive coordinator. So the roster build makeup might be a little different based on the way that he envisions his defense. So let's start where possibly the strength of this team is, Adam, and that's their 2 starting defensive tackles, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave. But after that, it's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, this show that we dropped this morning was one of the most challenging to put together, because for the first time, and Jeff and I have done this show, this is our 4th season doing it. We started in the spring of 2018. There are so many backup jobs open. There's so many key backup jobs open that you go through. Like 2 nights ago, I was putting together the format for the show. It took me probably just to figure out who we think the early 53 would be, about 20, 30 minutes just to do it on my own. So, yeah, look, behind Hargrave and Cox, they don't know who the 3rd, 4th, or 5th D tackles are. Now, we have a pretty good idea who should make it there, but they don't know what the rotation will be. Milton Williams will obviously make the team as a 3rd rounder. He'll play some end, too, if they need him to. Hassan Ridgeway they like. But he's had some injuries. He hasn't played very much for them. I think he spent 1 year with the Colts with Gannon. And Tui Pelotu is their 6th-round pick, who Jeff said they were looking for a nose tackle, and he can definitely do that. But overall, the 3 backup jobs, we know who they'll be, but we don't know who 3, 4, or 5 will be in terms of the order of first guy off the bench.
Yeah, would you agree, though, Adam, that Fletcher and Hargrave would be considered maybe the strength of their defense?
Yeah, obviously with Slay, but yeah, the 2 best players on defense right now, I would say, probably Cox and Hargrave. Slay didn't play badly. He just had some games. He had some individual moments, obviously against Metcalf and a couple other big-time receivers. But let's not forget, Slay was brought in to shut those guys down, and he didn't. A couple receivers got him, but overall he did well. They're expecting to be better in year 2 with this football team, getting back to Cox and Hargrave. I think Hargrave is going to be a monster in this defense. I think he'll be much better than he was last year. Now, he played well in the second half of the season. Got off to a slow start because he missed a lot of training camp with his pectoral injury. But I'm expecting him to do well. But the DNs here, though, the ones who are going to get the pass rush here. The Graham, Barnett, and we'll get to Sweat and Kerrigan and all. But I'm expecting Cox and Hargrave to do well in this defense.
Let me get real quick on Milton Williams. I mean, is he a guy they think is a pass rushing guy that will replace one of these guys somewhere down the road? Is he a rotational player? What do they kind of view him as?
No one told me this, but I just know we had said that we had heard Tracy Rocker, the D-line coach, liked him of all the people who turn in grades for the Eagles, because every player gets several grades turned in. It's the position coach, the area scout, scouting director. They'll get a guy like Milton Williams probably had at least 6 grades turned in, and this is a guy they thought had tremendous upside. Potentially start, by the way. I'm not saying he's going to replace Cox, but he could in maybe 3 years from now, maybe by his third year. Because by contract structure, it would not surprise me if Cox does not play well this season, that 22 is his last season. That's something we're not really addressing right now, but Cox needs to play a little bit more consistent football for the Eagles at D-line.
Yeah, D-line, we would think is the strength of the team with Cox, Hargrave, and then Graham, Barnett, Kerrigan, Josh Sweat, and behind those 4, I guess the 5th, 6th, 7th guys aren't going to get a lot of playing time, but it's going to be interesting the way that they rotated these guys in the past. How is Jonathan Gannon going to utilize this crew?
Yeah, here's the question. So we know, as you said, Graham, Barnett, Sweat, and Kerrigan. Kerrigan will also be a stand-up linebacker. He'll go back and forth. It could be by game, whatever. He's a pass rusher. That's what I'm calling it. I'm not calling a specific position. He's just a pass rusher. He'll count more as a DM than linebacker, but he's a pass rusher. The question is, do they keep Teron Jackson, their 6th rounder? Because remember, Milton Williams has the ability to play end, so they may not keep him. Right now, I have him on the roster as a 5th DN, because remember, we reported a couple months ago that Jannard Avery and Osman are moving to strong side linebacker. So that leaves the door open for a guy like Teron Jackson, their 6th rounder, to make it.
All right. One thing on Derek Barnett, I guess, I would imagine this is kind of a make or break for him. I mean, this is it for him. If he has another year like the previous 4, he would probably not be around any longer.
I would agree. He's making just over $10 million on his 5th-year option. He needs to play well. Josh Sweat could potentially get his contract extended before the season starts. We'll see what they do there. Kerrigan's got a lot left. The Eagles tormentor over the years. It's just when they announced it on Twitter that I did a double take. It was like weird because I saw his jersey. I'm like, wait a minute, is this a mistake? Ryan Kerrigan signing with the Eagles? No. Wow, that's and by the way, the contract, we put the terms out on our show a couple weeks ago. It's a really light deal. He's only going to make $2.5 million.
All right. Speaking of light, the linebacker spot was very light the last couple of years. Now they added Eric Wilson. They think he's a starter. Alex Singleton came in, did a nice job. TJ Edwards has been a guy who's got playing time. Davion Taylor, 3rd round. They drafted Jacoby Stevens, Jannard Avery. They're going to move the linebacker. So give us a little overview of this 53-man aspect and how they envision these roles.
Yeah, when you look at these, Mike, when you look at their linebacker group, the only thing we could say is an absolute lock that Eric Wilson will be a starter. They're going to be a 2-linebacker lineman. They're going to go 4-2-5 is what we understand. The other linebacker could be Singleton. We're not sure yet. We know that Avery has the leg up on the strong side linebacker job. We're so young in this defense here in terms of learning. We're not sure. Are they going to go with Wilson and Singleton? Are they going to go with Wilson and Avery? Are they going to use Avery as a pass rusher on 3rd down? We don't know. That's if he makes a team, by the way. He's on the final year of his deal. Davion Taylor, we think will be on the team because he's a 3rd rounder, but I don't know how much he'll play. TJ Edwards is strictly a rundown guy. Jacoby Stevens is learning how to play linebacker here. So we've got 6 guys making for now. Wilson, Edwards, Singleton, Davion Taylor, Stevens, and Avery. You could, by the way, on the show that dropped today, you could hear our breakdowns and we have analytic information. We have some incredible information that we got some analytic stuff from our intern who got some great stuff. So I could just tell you that Eric Wilson is a perfect fit for this defense. He's a nickel linebacker, and he's the one guy, Mike, they know who could cover of this linebacker group.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how Avery is utilized in this linebacker form. Are they going to let him go? Or is he just going to be kind of a role player? That's going to be one guy that I'm kind of interested in. Now, when you go to the secondary, obviously Slay, and then we've essentially don't know much about the rest of this crew. I mean, we think Maddox will make the team, but McPherson drafted in the 4th round, and then after that, it's almost like let's pick him out of a hat.
Yeah, the locks to make the team would be Slay, McPherson, and Maddox. Those guys aren't going anywhere in terms of we're at corner. Now, after that, Craig James knows the defense. He played in it in Minnesota. Kevon Seymour is the only other veteran they have other than Slay. He should be on the roster. Michael Jaquette is how you pronounce his last name. Jaquette. I'm going to put him on there because he's got length. He's a major project. You'd rather have him on your practice squad. He played. The narrative of this stuff with the fans is just funny. I've run his name with a lot of people I trust. He played well for one half of one game. And people are thinking like this guy's the next Richard Sherman. I just got a kick out of it. He's changing positions. Like Sherman, he's a former wide receiver, learned how to play cornerback. But Sherman played way more corner in college than this kid did. So I would only put 5. I'm only keeping 5 outside corners, and Maddox will be the 6th as the slot. James can play slot. In our analytic numbers, McPherson did play some slot, more outside than inside. But that's it. I mean, that's that. I don't think Josiah Scott has a chance because he could play slot or outside. We're told he's going to start learning the outside position with him a little bit more than the inside. But there are a lot of question marks. James and Seymour and Jaquette are not locks to make it. So you do wonder, until they get a veteran, and we think they're going, we pretty certain they're going to add a veteran at some point. Could be in a week. It could be 3 months. We don't know when it's going to be. Could be in a trade by end of August. Who the hell knows? But in the end, Mike, they have major question marks, as you said, opposite Slay.
Adam Kaplan from the Inside the Birds podcast. And then the safety spot. McLeod and Harris seem to be solid veteran guys there. You got a nice duo, and then a lot of young guys behind them.
Yeah, we don't know if McLeod will almost certainly start on active PUP for training camp, and then they'll see if he could come off of it before the season starts, because if he doesn't, that means he's misses 6 weeks. We'll see. We don't know if he's going to be ready yet. Harris will start. We know that. Kevon Wallace will be in the rotation with Marcus Epps, who knows the defense from his days with the Vikings. Andrew Adams is a 4th of his safety special teamer. Kevon Wallace could be starting opening day. You know, Mike, this is a guy that I know a lot of fans like, but he didn't really play very much last season. It would be between Epps and Wallace to play opposite Harris if McLeod's not ready. But you're right. This one's a little bit more straightforward.
So that is a look at the early 53-man roster projection. And as you noted, one spot that they could add a guy, the most likely spot corner would be that spot. Everywhere else, it seems like there's good, deep competition.
There is. I mean, look, how good is their linebacker group? That remains to be seen. It's certainly a bottom 10 group. Could it be better than last year? Sure. But again, they're running a different scheme. You're right in your assessment. The D-line is the strength of the defense. There's no question about that. Safety could be okay if Wallace could take a step up and Epps improves off last year. But they've the position you never want to have a lot of questions is at corner, and boy do they. I know they really like McPherson, but he is a rookie. We'll see what happens.
Yep. I like everybody that I draft too until I actually see them play, and then have to make a real assessment on them. Adam Kaplan, the new Inside the Birds podcast, they go a lot deeper into these 53 men. Check out Monday's edition and the new one that dropped today at 6 a.m. And this is Football at 4. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. It's Adam Kaplan here on Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash. I think the one area we know is corner, but I think the safety spot's interesting too, because everywhere you kind of look and read about Anthony Harris, everybody kind of keeps talking about how he was one of the best value contracts in football this past in terms of the off season. And, I feel like last year, while I was supportive of moving Jalen Mills to the safety spot, I blanked on Mills' name for a second. Jalen Mills to the safety spot. They had to keep moving him. He had to play corner. He had to go back to safety. Then he went back to corner again. Harris was coached by Jonathan Gannon in Minnesota, and the Eagles obviously needed an upgrade at that spot. So I think he comes in and starts. It's kind of a too-high safety defense, which is a little different from what Jim Schwartz did. They like to play a guy like Malcolm Jenkins or Jalen Mills up on the ball a little bit more. I think you're going to see Anthony Harris and Rodney McLeod in more of that too-high safety look. And then Kevon Wallace, who Adam just mentioned, he would be the guy that would probably start if Rodney McLeod's not ready. Honestly, we can't say we know a whole heck of a lot about Kevon Wallace because he didn't really play all that much last year. He was a 4th rounder, Clemson. He's got that pedigree going. But other than that, I think their starters at safety are solid. The question is, What kind of depth do they have behind them? Now, because of the salary cap problems, they haven't been able to do anything at the cornerback position. Now, Harris, to me, he's an above-average player. I think he's going to give you more at the safety spot in this defense than what Mills gave you from the safety spot in last year. He's a bargain player, Anthony Harris. So he's one of those guys that you might say, wow, how did they get Anthony Harris? Remember, the Minnesota Vikings thought enough of him after the season he had 2 years ago that they franchise tagged him. Yeah, they gave him the franchise tag. And he ended up signing for $11 million, and the two sides were trying to work on a long-term deal. The problem became, after they gave him the $11 million, he didn't have a good season compared to what he did in the past. And you might say, well, what's the problem? Well, if you noticed last year, the Minnesota Vikings defense was not nearly the defense they were the year before and the year before that. The year before that, they had a great pass rush. They were one of the top defenses in football. Last year, not so much. So when he was one of the better safeties in the league, 9 interceptions over 2 seasons, 105 tackles, a playmaker, 11 pass breakups, actually 17 over 2 seasons. Last year, defensive line, not so good. Minnesota defense, not so good. Anthony Harris, no picks, 7 pass breakups, 104 tackles. What does that number say? Hey, Harris, our defensive line stinks. We need you to help out against the run. So if you watch Anthony Harris at all, you see a guy, good tackler, can come up and stop the run, has been a playmaking safety in the past. I think he's a guy that the Eagles got for good money, good value, and he's probably a guy at 29 years old that has a year or two left in him as they get and find out more about Kayvon Wallace. I think Wallace is an interesting guy. He's a big key for this team moving forward because you're going to have to start moving on for Rodney McLeod. Anthony Harris is just kind of a stopgap guy, and they have not been able to draft a safety to come in here and actually play. You're going back to what? Brian Dawkins, I would guess. I mean, when's the last time they drafted a safety that actually came in here? I mean, Nate Allen, who was just average, he was very disappointing. I like that pick of Nate Allen. He was a second rounder. I really thought he was going to come in and do a good job for them. But Kayvon Wallace was, I would imagine, a 3-year starter at Clemson. So if you're playing at Clemson, you're legit. I mean, you're a guy who played some high-level football, although you're in the ACC, so you're not that high level. It's not like he was playing SEC games. But, no, I mean, you know, they're obviously a good program. But he's a small guy. Very aggressive. He's, you know, to me, Wallace seems to be a third safety more than a second safety or a top safety for a team. So, that's an area to watch. Keep that in mind. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Over on the text board, it's almost July, Mike. What the heck is going on at corner? It's a good question. Let's say this. They're playing the field. How about that? They're playing the field. It's summertime. They want to see what kind of talent's out there. They're going to just kind of date them all. And then I think they'll get it done. I think they'll get a safety, a corner in here. And I think it'll be via trade. Just me. I think they'll end up trading for a corner, and they'll utilize someone on their roster. Andre Dillard, Zach Ertz. Who else would be a trade candidate? Dillard, obviously, because he's a first-round pick, probably has some value. Ertz has value. Not first-round pick value, but hey, you give me your guy who's disgruntled, I'll give you my guy who's disgruntled, that kind of pick, that kind of deal. Dillard, hey, you need a tackle, your line stinks, and you have too many corners, that kind of trade. What else? Who else on this roster would be in the mold? Maybe Derek Barnett? Yep, he's on the last year of his deal, although I don't think anybody wants him either. But I'm trying to, we know the Jordan Matthews trade Jordan Matthews, I don't think people thought, man, this guy's got a ton of value. But his rookie year, he had a nice rookie year, and then a second year, he wasn't nearly as good. So that's what I think. That's how I think they'll end up filling it. Now, they can still sign one of these guys that's out there. Steve Nelson, we've heard his name a lot, yada, yada, yada. All right, Sports Bash Live. I just love the football conversation. And you only get it, football at 4, every day here on the Sports Bash. Mike, they should have drafted Jeremy Chin instead of Jalen Hurts. Oh, maybe, but then you wouldn't have a quarterback this year. You'd be playing Joe Flacco. Jalen Hurts is kind of a necessity at this point. And we all assume that Jeremy Chin would have came right in here and fit in. I don't know. What kind of defense are they running in Carolina? Is it similar to what Jim Schwartz ran here? And now you're running what Jonathan Gannon's running, which is different from what they're running. So, yeah, Chin's a nice player, but Nnamdi Asomugha was really good in Oakland, not so good here. System matters. That's what the point is. I like Jeremy Chin. I wouldn't have been upset if they took him, but system does matter. But I agree with you. Chin's a nice player. What else we got? 609 403 0973. 609 403 0973. Oh, he says they'd still have Wentz. That's what messed up his head. Well, then did you want a messed up head quarterback? I don't know. That to me is weak sauce. I can't buy that. And if it is, guess what? You're not mentally tough enough. They drafted Jordan Love in Green Bay, and Rodgers went out and won the MVP. Back with more Sports Bash. right, what's going on, everybody? Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. I'm Mike Gill. My producer is Josh Henning. You can see him on the live video. What's up, Josh?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hello. Remember that Seinfeld episode? They didn't want to give up saying the hello. Are we done with the voice? Yeah, I think we're done with it.
You're asking the wrong guy. You forgot that, didn't you?
If I asked you if it was a Marvel, you would have got it.
Marvel, DC, Godfather, Fast and the
I did a
Furious.
Godfather earlier.
And I was impressed. I gave you a thumbs up, but you were very involved in your analogy. So.
I have to turn my back on you.
Good pull by you.
All right. These are things that happened on this day, June 24th. You ready?
Yeah. Oh, actually, no. Godfather. In a word, yes.
Okay. I'm happy that you're ready. Here we go. On this day in 1922, the American Professional Football Association changed its name to the National Football League. Can you imagine if it was the APFA as opposed to the NFL?
It's just laborious.
One of those things?
That sounds like it would have been a pain.
Yeah.
Smart move by them.
I definitely, because it's so funny how things are called what they are, and you only can imagine, you can't imagine them being called something else.
Right.
Like, the NFL works, it fits, it's perfect. Like, whatever I just said, the APAF or whatever, that doesn't work. Hey, we're going to talk some APAFL coming up next.
Yeah, it sounds like you're not talking about football anymore, but something else. like something like with politics.
It's weird how things work. They are perfect for what they are.
Yeah. NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL.
MLB is the one that's like the NBA, the NHL, the NFL. The MLB is a little different. That one doesn't.
Clunky, yeah.
That one doesn't click as well.
Not as well, but at least it's only 3 letters.
But it's Major League Baseball. All right, what's today? The 24th.
Yeah.
Got a couple more. We'll do. Have some fun here. 1995, the Devils 4-game sweep over the Red Wings. 5-2, they win their first Stanley Cup title. How about the Devils? People forget. It was one of the premier franchises in the 90s.
It's one of the best goalies on the planet.
Jeez.
Martin Brodeur, man.
Just bizarre. The New Jersey Devils, nobody cared. And they won all those titles. And you never hear anybody brag that they're a Devils fan. It's like the clowns who were Cowboys. They're like, oh, look at all the titles we have. The Devils won all those titles, and nobody puffed their chest out about that. Right? You ever hear someone I'm a Devils fan. We got all these cups.
Just saying that sounds hilarious.
They did. How many did they win? 3?
I think it was 3, yeah.
92, NBA draft was held in Portland, Oregon. And with the first pick, the Orlando Magic select Shaquille O'Neal. Number 2, Charlotte took Alonzo Mourning. That's kind of a game changer. You get Shaq. You get, not that Mourning stunk, but you got Shaq.
Yeah, Shaq is a once-in-a-lifetime player, and Alonzo Mourning is just a Hall of Fame.
Yeah, if you remember, Shaq, they ended up getting him, and then they paired him with Penny. They got lucky on the Shaq thing. That was a total luck thing for them.
Right. And the Penny thing, too.
Wasn't there a 30 for 30 on that?
Oh, yeah. That's great with 30 for 30.
1995, Roy Jones Jr. becomes the first boxer in CompuBox history to go an entire round without being hit by his opponent. It's a 6-round knockout of Vinny Pazienza at Atlantic City's Boardwalk Hall. Jones' 3 minutes of perfection came in the 4th round. He retains the IBF super middleweight title with the win.
Sounds like a rough night for the Italianos.
Vinny Pazienza, remember him? Wasn't he the guy that broke his neck?
I thought that was him.
I think so. Roy Jones Jr., people, there was a time where Roy Jones Jr. was like Floyd Mayweather before Floyd was Floyd.
Yes, absolutely. And I would argue that Roy at his peak was better than Floyd at his peak.
Well, he wasn't this defensive marvel. His fights were more fun to watch.
That and also the fact that he didn't go out of his way to avoid certain people.
All right, do you remember this one? John Isner.
Yes.
And Nick Mahut played the longest tennis match in history in 2010.
Yes.
It lasted 80 points, and it took 11 hours, 5 minutes over 3 days. It got suspended because of darkness 2 days in a row. Now, Isner won 6-4, 3-6, 6-7, 7-6, 70, 68. You have to win by 2. He finally won 70-68. When play resumed, it was 59-all. I remember watching that thing, and it was just epic.
That was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen, like in a good way, though. I mean, it was just insane. And there are people who are trying to say, Isner's going to be the next American, and it never worked out.
No, I never heard from him again.
He still hangs around. I made some money off him the last few years.
Really?
Come on, I bet tennis.
All right. NBA draft, Orlando. On this day in 2004, they got the first pick again. They take Dwight Howard with the first pick in the draft. Yes, that Dwight Howard. You know, he was out of high school,
Yes, he was.
Southwest Atlanta Christian Academy. And, I mean, for as goofy as he was and for wherever he's been, he did take the Magic to a finals. Like, that shows you how different the game was. That Dwight Howard
Just 11 years ago.
was good enough to get you to an NBA finals.
That would never happen in today's game.
Not with Dwight Howard, for sure.
Or any other. Like, the closest comp to Dwight Howard at this point is what in today's game? Rudy Gobert? Is Rudy Gobert carrying the Jazz to an NBA Finals? No. They can't even get there when it's him and Donovan Mitchell and company.
Dwight
They're the number 1 seed.
Dwight Howard was a Defensive Player of the Year.
Yes, he was. He also led the league in rebounding a gazillion times.
A couple more. 97, Randy Johnson breaks Ron Guidry's American League record for strikeouts in a game by a lefty. He has 19 strikeouts in a losing effort.
Was it 97 or 98 also the year he killed that bird with the fastball?
I don't know, but did you see him give the message to John Kruk the other night? That was pretty funny. All right, there's our Do You Remembers for this day, June the 24th. Here on the Sports Bash Live. Yeah, Randy Johnson gave I guess they were congratulating Kruk on like 30 years from his first All-Star game appearance.
Yeah,
I don't know why they randomly picked this day, but they had Randy Johnson give him like a message like, hey, congratulations on 30 years since your first All-Star game in 1991. I remember the 1993 one where I threw it in my head. Or something.
That's got to be one of the greatest All-Star game memories of all time.
Yeah.
Randy versus Crooker. The Crooker tried to flip his helmet over to that bat right.
By the way, have you seen the jerseys for this year's All-Star game?
I have not.
They're not wearing the actual game uniforms. They're wearing like the batting practice ones when they do like
the home run derby.
Yeah. They're horrible. It looks like something you bought on the clearance rack at TJ Maxx or Marshall's.
I'm going to look this up then.
I'm putting them on the website right now. During this commercial break, I'll put them up on the. They are horrible, horrible. It's got like a PHI down the side here, and then a Phillies P going through it. The arm has like some sort of floral purple print because it's in Colorado. It's a terrible look, and they're going to wear them in the game. It's the first time they're going to wear them instead of wearing your actual uniform in the game. You're going to be wearing these things.
Yikes.
Just another money grab.
Of course.
All right, Frank Close, we'll talk a little Phillies. They're a mess. We'll talk to him next. All right, 441. Hope you're enjoying your day. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. If you're watching the show, you'll see our Phillies insider Frank Close in just a minute. You'll also be checking out all the stream conversation. We'll get to those in just a little bit in the next hour. The next hour will be a lot of engagement with you guys out there, so keep your messages and your text messages coming. Somebody texting Scott Stevens, by the way. Yep, we all remember. Thanks for playing. Scott Stevens knocked out Lindros. The rest is history there, right? Unbelievable. Those Devils teams. They had Scott Stevens. Who else was it? It was really Brodeur. It was like the man. You know, they had who else was on that team? He wasn't on those teams though, right? It was like Peter Stastny or something like that. Who was like their Stevens was a defensive player. Who was their big time scorer on those teams? Going back to 1995. The 95, but that's like the one thing about the Devils fans. Like the Devils fans are, nobody knows any Devils fans, right? But you never hear them like brag about the fact that they have all these championships. They're good fans. Who do they have? Like Scott Niedermeyer, I think, was on that team. Andrew Chuck. Was that the team that won the Stanley Cup? Aliash was on that team. Okay. So that team won the Stanley Cup with Richter. Oh, John McLean. Yeah, he was another one that was like the leader guy. Bobby Holik was on that. Claude Lemieux, Scott Niedermeyer. Good franchise, good organization. I mean, look, they won Stanley Cup after Stanley Cup when we were growing up. It seemed like that's all they did. They were just such a pain in the ass for the Jersey Devils. The old Jersey. How many Stanley Cups do they have? 3. Yeah, I was right. 94, 95. Then they won again in 99, 2000, and again in 2002, 2003. Now, since then, they have turned into kind of a mess. Yeah, kind of a mess. They've been kind of a mess since that time. All right, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. I want to take a look at some of the Phillies stuff. We got the question earlier about the Phillies. This is a team that I got to be honest with you. Over the years, even when Gabe Kapler was here, you'd be like, I don't believe in them. Well, they're in the race. Like, they're in the race. Like, nobody else. This team, while are they in the race? I know they're not out of it, but they're 5 back. We're approaching the Midsummer Classic, and this team is 5 games back. I don't know. In my heart of hearts, I simply just think this team is as mediocre. And this is my opening question for Frank Close, all right? To me, this team is mediocre. Fine. Are they closer to bad than they are to good as mediocre? Are they closer to the good side of mediocre or you're closer to being bad you're an average team. Okay, you're average. I'm not calling them bad. They're average. But are they closer to bad, or are they an average team that's closer to a good team?
I think once Dave Dombrowski has the opportunity to make some larger scale changes on this roster, they can be closer to good. I think the problem that they had here was Matt Klentak left them in a situation where they kind of had to re-sign Didi. They kind of had to re-sign JT Realmuto. And then once you do that, there's no money left. He was trying to fill the roster with these couple $1 million players, the Matt Moores, Chase Andersons, et cetera, et cetera. Some of the decisions made for him ahead of time about Hector Neris and Vince Velazquez. So there really wasn't much room to operate. And I feel like once Dave Dombrowski lets a year go by, doesn't do much more harm in terms of trading prospects, he can start to take this core, which does have Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, Bryce Harper, and JT Realmuto, and try to fill it out properly. I think that's the really difficult challenge that the Phillies face right now.
Yeah. There was a question that came in earlier. I think I had a little bit of a trouble answering this question. I did the best I could, but I'll ask you. This is from Pat on the beach in Sea City, and he says, it's becoming more and more clear the Phillies team is probably not going to make the playoffs and needs to be dismantled. What does this franchise do? Dombrowski wasn't coming here to rebuild, and I think that is the big key there. He did not accept this job to rebuild a team. But how do you fix this team with the current pieces that you have? I'm having a hard time. Like, I'm going around the diamond and I'm saying, all right, I can trade Rhys Hoskins, but what am I getting in return for him? You know, I could trade Gene Segura. I'm not getting much back for him. I could trade Didi. I could trade guys, sure, but nobody is going to give me, outside of maybe Wheeler, maybe Nola, no one is going to give me the return that is going to. And if you make a trade of that magnitude, aren't you telling Bryce Harper now that we are resetting the whole deck? You can't do that.
Yeah, that's why I don't think they're going to try to reset the whole deck. I think this year is a transition year, and what you have to do is you have to let the Phillies. I'll say this: all the best prospects are like at Class A Jersey Shore right now. They are the ones that need to rise through the system. They're the ones that are going to actually make an impact on this roster. So you're at a point where you can't really trade them. And at the same time, you don't have any financial flexibility to add players either. Even if you're just, the other way to get players is, instead of trading your prospects, is to take on somebody's salary. They can't do that. So basically, they have to find a way to just kind of hang in there this year without saying that they're rebuilding. But then in the offseason, you have a number of free agents. You have Andrew McCutchen in left. You have Odubel Herrera in center, both of them a significant chunk of your payroll. Then you look to the bullpen. You have Hector Neris as a free agent. Archie Bradley's a free agent. Vince Velazquez is a free agent. So you might have some wiggle room finally. And a lot of these one-year guys, of course, the Matt Moores, Chase Andersons of the world, they all kind of cycle out too. So you really will have some sort of financial flexibility this offseason. But you don't want to trade your prospects. I think from what I know of Dave Dombrowski over the years, he will try to hold on to them. He will try to make marginal improvements that don't hurt the long term. But I don't see them, even if it means they don't make the playoffs. I don't see them just going off a full scale kind of selling mode either. This offseason coming up, that's when maybe you can trade Didi Gregorius or Gene Segura, guys who will be free agents after next year. Replace one of them with Bryson Stott, your top prospect. That's a possibility. As you said, you could trade Rhys Hoskins. I wouldn't put that off the table, even though he's a popular player. He might get you something. As you said, you don't know what. I guess it depends on how his whole body of work looks this year. He's going to hit 30 home runs. Of course, Alec Boehm can play first base. So, the nice thing about Dave Dombrowski being here is he's not attached to any of these guys. He's coming in as the outsider. He sees what he sees, and then he can react accordingly. But the problem is, in the meantime, you're at this limbo stage where you're not bad. You're not gonna. I don't see this team going on a losing streak like they did, the last couple Septembers, because they have enough talent that should sustain them.
Well, I will say this, Frank. You've got a 4-game set with the Mets here. You're 5 games out. Let's say you lose 3 out of 4 in this series. You're entering the All-Star break 7, 8, 9 games maybe back if you get swept here. At that point, do they have to reevaluate their plan?
I think when you say reevaluate, I think at the very worst, they'll only trade like the Hector Nerises of the world, the Archie Bradleys of the world. I don't think there's any type of major move per se coming. I mean, if you count those as major enough, and when you trade guys like that, you're likely to get in return. Or I think Andrew McCutchen, somebody would want him if you said to him, "Hey, Kutch, we don't think we're in it. It's the end of July. How about we trade you to a contender?" Somebody will take Andrew McCutchen. I guarantee that. But the prospects you get in return for those types of guys, you're probably getting a Class A player who could go either way, and then it's up to the organization to try to develop them. So I don't think there's anything that the Phillies could do right now that pays any type of immediate dividends next year. So this is this is one of those things where you just kind of have to hold your breath and sort of let some of these players cycle through.
Yeah, this feels like it's one of those just painful, like just put your seatbelt on and just, if it gets bumpy, you're in your seatbelt. And if not, hey, you're enjoying this ride. But like Bryce Harper said, well, we got to win 9 out of 10, or we got to start winning on games on the road, and we got to start beating the teams that you are the team that the other team thinks they're saying the same thing, and you're the team they think they should be beating, right? Like,
And interestingly, the Nationals, they've won 9 out of 10. I mean, the Phillies caught the Nationals when they're hot. And of course, they lose 2 one-run games that they were very winnable, unfortunately. But now the Nationals are the second place team, only 4 behind the Mets, which is unbelievable because the Nationals just seem absolutely buried. By the way, the Mets are certainly leaking oil in a lot of areas. They've even lost their 5th starter, Joey Lucchesi. And Vance Worley just signed with the Mets. It seems like they're really grabbing to try to stay above water themselves. So it's still, as crazy as it sounds, this division is very winnable. If the Phillies can take 3 out of 4 in New York, well, then you start to say, well,
yeah,
but
if
we'll
they
see.
Win a series against a team like the Mets, sure. If they win 3 out of 4 and you cut 2 games off of that, you're 3 games out and you're kind of hanging in that one. But if it goes the other way around and you lose 3 out of 4, and the next thing you know, you're now 8 games out, and it's like, all right, this team is what it is. And that's where it's going to be tough, where you're right. I agree with you, Frank. They just like, okay, trade Gene Segura. I'm not getting anything for him. I'm not getting it. Now, if you just want to say, let's move him and start, let's bring up Bryson Stott, play him right off the bat, okay, then people might accept that. But are they really going to labor through a whole summer, 6, 7, 8 games out, playing these guys? It's going to get pretty tough over at Citizens Bank Park, I would think.
Yeah, the problem is, I don't know if it's a problem. I mean, fans can go to the games; they will enjoy them winning at least half of the home games that they could possibly go to. I mean, I think that's kind of easy. So, is that going to be enough? Or they're going to feel satisfied with that? I mean, fans waited around since. I mean, they waited all these years for them to admit that it was time to rebuild, and then the rebuild began in 2015, and there's nothing to show for fans sticking around for 6 years.
They had the wrong guy running the rebuild.
Correct. I think the idea that we're going to get the GM that's new and innovative and on the cutting edge, and the manager that's new and innovative on the cutting edge, that just didn't work. They didn't go for the seasoned general manager to oversee a rebuild, and I think that's really what cost them.
No question. All right, this week they got the Mets. Obviously, it's a big one because, as we said, this Mets team, if it's 3 out of 4, next thing you know, you go from 5 games to 8 games. If they sweep you, you're 9 games back before the All-Star break. I mean, you could be double-digit games out by the All-Star break. This is a big series. There's not many like, hey, June big series, but this one kind of feels like you can't be 9 games back in July.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's what makes a game like yesterday so frustrating and so important. And by the way, if I could talk about that for a minute, I mean, I know Joe Girardi getting railed for putting David Hale in, but David Hale was coming into that game no matter what. And part of that was a carryover from the day before because they had to use the bullpen for 6 innings on a Zach Wheeler start. You're not supposed to do that. Zach Wheeler is one of the pitchers that went deepest into games in all of baseball. So when that happens, you burn out the Ranger Suarez and the Bailey Falters, and they can't come in because they're not supposed to pitch that day. And then either you play David Hale in that spot or you play David Hale later in the game. So it's a really tough thing. And I think that what they need to do is they need to decide what to do with Spencer Howard. You can't waste 2 roster spots on 1 starting pitcher anymore because then you have what you had yesterday, and really make a decision who's going to start instead. And they're talking about thinking about the closer. Maybe you try Spencer Howard because you see him come in and blow guys away with 97 miles an hour.
I do like that idea. I'm always a fan of the hot. Like I'd give Velazquez a chance to close. He sucks in 5 innings, but he's fine in 1 inning. I'd rather see him close games than some of the other options out there. He's Frank Close at Frank Close on Twitter. That's a good one. I like Spencer Howard. Give him a shot to be the closer. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. All right, Frank, take care, pal.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, Sports Bash this hour brought to you by Prop Swap. All right, Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app, and of course you can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. You are locked in to a Thursday edition. Tomorrow, by the way, Susie Hunter is back. She's the girl who's kind of backpacking across the country to go to every baseball stadium. We're going to kind of follow her every Friday and check out her week to see where she was. I think she was down in Miami, Tampa, and we'll check in on those two stadiums with Susie tomorrow at 3 o'clock. So check in with her. Also, Frank Close just brought up, how about trying a guy like Spencer Howard as the closer? Hey, I was the guy that thought the Phillies should have tried to use Jake Arrieta as the closer. They weren't getting anything out of him in the starting rotation. Remember? He was just kind of giving you nothing. He was running out of gas. Then he had the elbow problem, and he was trying to pitch. And I'm thinking, if you have an injured elbow, we know you have an injured elbow. This is known. He had the bone spurs in his elbow. We know this. And nobody thought, hey, you know what we should do to maximize this guy who has an elbow issue? Instead of saying, hey, why don't we make him a closer? Our bullpen's terrible. Right? Our bullpen's terrible. We have no closer. Our bullpen's awful. And Jake Arrieta is not helping us in the starting rotation. He can't get through 4 innings. I don't understand how nobody can see, hey, the guy is not pitching well. Let's utilize him in 1 inning instead of 5 innings. It makes no sense to me. Like some baseball teams, like people that run these organizations, you're telling me that you have no outside the box thinking. Seriously, you cannot see, hey, Arrieta's got the bone spurs. He can't get through. So the same thing with Spencer Howard. Really? Spencer Howard can't pitch 5 innings. Vince Velazquez can't pitch 5 innings. Why do we keep trying to force feed these guys into roles that they're not good enough for? Well, who else is going to do it? Okay. Because you don't have someone else, let's just put another lousy guy there. Spencer Howard is a guy who could be an asset to this team. Look, I'm no Hector Neris hater. I also understand that Neris is the best option they have of a crappy bunch. You're going to say, let's put Archie Bradley in the closer's role and then complain that he coughed up the lead yesterday. Let's put Sam Coonrod in the closer's role. He walked 3 guys and basically blew the game for you yesterday. They don't have an option in the current bullpen. You keep starting Spencer Howard, but he can't get through a game. You know that Spencer Howard certainly is not good enough to have a spot in your starting rotation right now. Now, again, part of the problem is, you're right, they don't have 5 pitchers that can really start. But Spencer Howard, because quite frankly, he gets through the 2nd or 3rd inning and then he runs out of gas. But in that 1st inning that he throws, he's not bad. He's actually pretty good. And if you take a look at Spencer Howard and say, how can we utilize this guy, right? Here's a guy that has some good stuff. This is a guy that I think, if you're the Phillies, here's a guy that we like, but we just, for whatever reason, he's not giving us much after that 2nd inning. So what can I do? Let's think about this now if I'm the Phillies, right? If I'm the Phillies and I'm thinking, how can I utilize this guy a little bit better? Well, in the 1st inning of games, Spencer Howard has not given up a run yet. Okay? In the 1st inning of games, his ERA is 0.0. He has 6 strikeouts in 4 games. Opponents are hitting .077 off of him. Right? In the 2nd inning of games, no one has scored yet on Spencer Howard. In the 2nd inning of games, Spencer Howard has pitched 4 innings. He has given up 1 hit. He has struck out 5. So in the first 2 innings of games, he has 11 strikeouts and has not given up a run. Right? But in the 3rd inning of games, this is where things fall apart for him. In the 3rd inning of games, Spencer Howard starts to get caught up. For whatever reason, maybe he's out of gas, maybe he's not built up enough yet. But if I say I have a pitcher who's really good for the first 2 innings, his stuff looks way better, but then he kind of falls apart, why wouldn't I utilize him in a different role? I mean, this isn't rocket science. Look, I'm not a big pitch count guy, all right? But the pitch count for Spencer Howard kind of tells the story here. Pitch 1 through 25 in 8 games. When he throws 25 pitches, he has done that 8 times. He has 16 strikeouts through the first 25 pitches. After that, when he gets to pitch 26 through 50, this is a problem for him. And when he's pitched 51 through 75, he just absolutely is manure. Not usable. So how about this, Phillies? How about I got an idea? Spencer Howard offers me something. Why don't I try to utilize him in a way that would help the team out? Your closing situation's a dumpster. He's not helping you in the starting rotation. How about we try using him in that role? Just a thought. Now, the Vince Velazquez thing, I get it. They don't have a lot of options here. They just simply do not. But how about Vince Velazquez if you had him in the closer's role or him in the setup role? Because you know why? In the first inning of games, Vince Velazquez has thrown 11 innings. And in those 11 innings, he has a 0.82 ERA with 12 strikeouts in 11 innings. So it's clear that Vince Velazquez for 1 inning is fine. Everything kind of falls apart in inning number 2. His ERA is 8.18. In inning 3, it's 3.27. In inning 4, it's 4.09. In inning 5, it's 5.40. In inning 6, it's 4.15. And in inning 7, his ERA is 54. So if I'm the Phillies, I now have enough data on Vince Velazquez to say, you know what? I don't think he's a starter, but I do feel that I can get something from him in an area that we're weak. Our bullpen is terrible. So why am I trying to force feed these guys into roles that they simply are not good enough to fill? And look, Vince Velazquez, in his entire career, I'm just giving you the first inning of this year. But when you look at his first inning in his career, it's the best inning that he has essentially pitched. He gets through that first inning, and then after that is when he has problems. I mean, the Phillies have all sorts of problems. Some of it is, they use these analytics, and they go with all the analytics and yada, yada, yada. Part of the problem is they don't have any outside-the-box thinking. We want Vince Velazquez to be a starter. We're just going to keep starting him. We think Spencer Howard's a starter. Well, he can only get through 2 innings. We'll just keep starting him and let him pitch 2 innings. I got an idea. If he only can throw 2 innings, how about pitching him as your closer? That's a great idea by Frank, by the way. He's the one that mentioned Spencer Howard. And it made me think of when last year, when you had bone spurs in the elbow of Jake Arrieta, and yet they kept pitching him in the starting rotation. Well, how about his arm was not physically healthy enough? How could you pitch a guy that you knew going into that game was going to fall apart in the 4th inning? And this isn't he was going to fall apart because he stunk. He's going to fall apart because he had bone spurs. So instead of that and saying, look, I know we're on the 4th inning, you're going to fall apart, why wouldn't you just say, you know what? We still like what you bring to the table. We know you're not healthy enough to pitch 5, 6, 7 innings, which is what we would like. So let's try to reorganize your role. There's good organizations, there's bad organizations, and there are mediocre organizations. The Phillies are a mix of a bad organization mixed with a mediocre roster. And I asked the question to Frank, which was, are you a mediocre team that is closer to bad, or are you a mediocre team that is closer to good? And my answer to that question is, sadly, you're a mediocre team that is closer to the bad side than you are mediocre closer to good. And why is that? Because I just think they have poor vision and leadership. This is a tough team to fix. It really is. A lot of veteran players on high-priced contracts that aren't going to get you a lot back in return. That's a problem. right? You got a lot of high-priced guys on this team that are not tradable in terms of getting you back value. I get asked all the time, well, why can't they trade DD? You can trade DD for a bag of David sunflower seeds. Why can't they trade Gene Segura? He's having a great year. Well, he happens to be hurt. Okay, fine. They can trade Gene Segura, but don't expect anything back in return for a guy that you don't want. If you don't want him, why would anybody else? A 31-year-old second baseman who is, he's having a good year. I'm not taking anything away from Gene Segura. He's hitting .332. He probably deserves to go to the Major League Baseball All-Star game this year, by the way. But a 31-year-old second baseman hitting .330 with no power, I don't think he's going to have such a hot trade market. So how do I fix this team? I mean, Didi Gregorius hasn't played in, a month now? And when he was playing, he's hitting .229. I like DD. He's a nice addition. I thought he would be a better addition. Last year, he was a nice player, .284, 10 homers, on base .339, which isn't very good. But defensively, he's terrible at this stage of his career. He's just not the same player. And the bat has just been a hindrance this year. They're getting more, quite frankly, from Ronald Torreyes. They're getting more offense from Ronald Torreyes. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. That's the text board. Another thing, again, I keep getting asked, well, why don't they try to move Segura? Why do they try to move Didi Gregorius? Why don't they try to trade this guy? JT Realmuto is another one. They can't trade him. People wanted JT Realmuto signed, and I was kind of against it. All right, I don't not like JT Realmuto, but there's no way you're getting 5 years, $115 million worth of value out of him. And how many times has JT Realmuto, he's a nice player, 282, 7 home runs, they're nice numbers. But in the grand scheme of things, is he a difference-making player? He hits in the middle of your lineup. And this isn't like you don't like JT's great. I like JT. But the money they had to spend to get him to come back here, I can't justify that. And I know what Frank said. Well, they were put in a rough spot because they didn't have any money. They didn't have talent. They didn't want to spend money elsewhere. JT wasn't getting offers, so they decided to bring him back. But in the end, that deal's not a good deal. Can you win with JT Realmuto? Sure. He should be hitting 6th or 7th in your lineup, though. On a good team, JT Realmuto hits 6th, 7th, and you're a really good team. Not 4. I always get asked, why can't they trade Andrew McCutchen? Who wants Andrew McCutchen? Sure, I can trade Andrew McCutchen, but what am I getting back for him? Nothing. Bupkis. It sounds great to say trade Andrew McCutchen. I'm not getting anything back for Andrew McCutchen. And when they signed Andrew McCutchen 3 years ago, I hated the contract. And he's getting paid way too much money. Now, it's at the end of the deal, so they can probably get something back for it now, or someone will take it from you now. But in order to take it from you, the return is we don't want to give you anything. Odubel Herrera. Sadly, Herrera's been one of your best players. He's hitting 257 with 5 homers, which on this team is one of your better players. But nobody's giving you anything of value for Odubel Herrera. Are you kidding me? He can't play center field, inconsistent at the plate. That's probably a guy you can't move. So who else on this team are you realistically saying I can trade that guy and do something? Nobody. It's got to be one of the least inspiring rosters and organizations that I've ever seen. I mean, are they better? I don't know. Are they underachieving, I guess is what I should ask. I don't know. I think this is just who they are. I think Aaron Nola is a good pitcher, not great. I think Wheeler is a very good pitcher. I think Eflin is a a little bit above average pitcher, and then the rest of the rotation's terrible. I mean, Vince Velazquez is a joke. The fact that they keep trotting him, I don't understand. Like, you get to a level, right, and you're coaching, and you're like, I just can't put this guy out there. I just have no trust in him anymore. Like, you literally get to that point where you're like, I can't put this guy there anymore. I don't understand how the managers of this organization, Kapler, before, and now Joe Girardi, and whoever's in the front office, continue to say, we're going to try Velazquez. Like, at what point have you seen enough? At what point have you seen enough of Vince Velazquez? I can't. It's like the Ben Simmons question. How do you not shoot the ball? How do you not say, hey, I've seen you shoot the ball before, until you go crazy? How? When do you ask yourself about Vince Velazquez? When do you say, I have seen enough? Well, I have nobody else. Guess what? Anybody else is better in your organization. Anybody else in your like, you're telling me Ranger Suarez didn't deserve the shot to be in the starting rotation? Hey, Ranger Suarez, let's give you a shot and see if you can be more consistent than Velazquez, because we know he can't. And if you can't admit that he can't, then you have the wrong evaluators. If this organization can't identify Vince Velazquez cannot carry that role, he cannot do it, then you have the wrong people running this team. If you have Spencer Howard and you keep trotting him out there to start and he can't get through the third inning, and you can't say, you know what, we like Spencer Howard, he adds something to this team, we just know he's not ready for this role, let's put him in a different role that he can help this team out. And if they can't see that, they have the wrong talent evaluators. Period, point blank. I'm not like I hate Spencer Howard, but he's obviously struggling to get through the second inning. So what? I'm not going to pitch him more than 2 innings. I'll put him in the bullpen and pitch him in an area where he can come in and fire 98-mile-per-hour fastballs in a high-leverage spot. He seems to be okay doing that in inning number 1 when he's facing the best 3 hitters in the lineup. (609-403-0973) 609-403-0973 on the text board. If you're watching the show live over on the video, we got a lot of other people still in that video chat on the Ben Simmons stuff that we were talking about earlier, and I will get back into that in a second. The Phillies pitching it's an utter disaster. To lose that game yesterday, utter disaster. And this is a team, by the way, that offensively hasn't done much either. Like, they don't get off the hook either. The offense has been okay. They're middle of to the back of the pack for most. I mean, it's a team that realistically, their offense is underachieving, to be honest with you. They're an underachieving offense right now. Can they be better? Sure. But how many times have they lost 3-2, 2-1, 4-3? 609-573-3776. Tom in Summers Point, you're on 97.3. What's up, Tommy?
Mike, you fix any baseball team with pitching. I got a great idea. Let's go get 9 pitchers, and all these 9 pitchers have to do is pitch one inning a game. Like this freaking Velazquez. It's like Ben Simmons. I've seen enough, Mike. How? I mean, Jesus. I just say get 9 pitchers and just ask them to pitch 1 inning a game. We'll be fine. But Mike,
you can't ask 9 guys to pitch 1 inning 162 days a year.
Well, just a thought, Mike. Just a thought. Hey, let me ask you a question. How many games do you think we lost with our bullpen? It's utter madness.
It is. But I will say this: as bad as it is, they're not worse than last year's bullpen.
No, but Mike, listen. In 08, we didn't win the World Series. So what? We got pitching. I mean, Lee, Halladay, Ham. Like, we had pitching.
No. They didn't win the World Series with Lee and Halladay. The odd part is they never won the World Series with that guy. They won the World Series.
You're right.
They won the World Series with less than their best pitcher that year was Hamels.
Wait a minute. One of Cliffley or one of those, either Halladay, I don't remember. So back it's what,
No.
13 years ago?
Not on the '08 team. The pitching staff was Hamels, Jamie Moyer, Joe Blanton, Brett Myers was on that team. They did not have Lee, and they did not have Halliday.
But you know, okay, but they had a bullpen, though, like that.
They did. They had a good bullpen.
I mean,
they had Brad Lidge, and Ryan Madsen was really good. And J.C. Romero they picked up. They picked up Scott Air. He was really – yes, they did have a very good bullpen.
Bullpen was huge.
And you got to have that now.
Listen, I see that – yes, Matt, going to basketball, Mike, I see the Atlanta Hawks winning the NBA championship. The dude is dirty. Mike, that team is young. They're playing defense, and they're fearless. I mean, the kid just hit shot after shot. And listen, I forgot who was on the other day, and he said, you win championships with shooters. And you know what? That's what the Hawks are, Mike. They put the ball in the basket when they need it late in the game. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Hawks win the championship. You can say they're a bad basketball team, Mike, but you're going on what? Going on
I have said that the Hawks are way better.
You said they weren't a good team.
No. I said all along that they are way better than people give them credit for. That most people haven't seen them play and think they're not good. No, this team is just built right. They're built right. They have a star.
Yes.
You know what they remind me a lot of? It's the Iverson team, where Iverson can do whatever he wants, shoot as much as he wants, and then the other guys just fill their roles. Now, this team is more offensively rolled as opposed to that Sixers team, but it's Trae Young, and then they don't really have a secondary scorer. They just have a bunch of guys who fill the roles.
But Mike, they play as a team. And listen, you double Trae Young, he dishes it. Listen, but the dude is just dirty. He is fearless. And you know what? That's, a lot of people look at a team in a regular season. I always said in the World Series, you know who wins the World Series? The team that gets hot at that time. They might not be the best team during the season, but it's like in any sport. Atlanta's playing great basketball. They bought in, and listen, I'm rooting for them. I mean, the Sixers are done. I think Atlanta has a great.
I agree. I said yesterday, I don't, and I appreciate the call, man. I don't think that people saw them play enough this year. And I said at the Sixers series, they are a lot better than people think. They're bigger. Their wings are big. They shoot the ball well. They've got energy. The Collins kid offensive rebound. And I said yesterday, I tweeted this out. I think this series goes 7, and I'm not surprised at all if they win this thing. They have a superstar player. Not a star, a superstar. You have to have that superstar. We talked about who are the players that could be the best player on the team that wins the championship? Well, guess what? You're about to find out if Trae Young can be that guy, because if he's not this year, I think he can be. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. When we come back, why the Sixers, there was some news today from Woj on Ben Simmons. I'll explain why the Sixers might have to trade Ben Simmons and why they won't trade Ben Simmons. Both sides of the coin. I'll present them to you guys, and I'm going to update our poll question at 973 ESPN. Head on over there and vote right now. Let us know what you think. Which team are you on? Trade Ben Simmons or keep Ben Simmons? Which team are you on? Trade Ben Simmons or keep Ben Simmons? Vote now at 973 ESPN on Twitter. I'll update the poll. I'll be back. Right now, it's 67% to 32% for which team. I got you next on The Bash. I don't know if you saw Chris Sims did his quarterback list, top 40 quarterbacks in football. And I said 40, and Jalen Hurts didn't make that list. Now, how's that possible? You're telling me he's got Marcus Mariota, who's not even a starter, Tyrod Taylor, Drew Lock, Case Keenum, Kellen Mond. Are you kidding me? I mean, even like from 40 up to 20. Ready? Case Keenum, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Kellen Mond, Marcus Mariota, Tyrod Taylor, Tua, Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater, Jared Goff, Mac Jones, Andy Dalton, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Daniel Jones, Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Ben Roethlisberger, Jimmy Garoppolo. That's the bottom 20. And then Cam Newton, Sam Darnold, Carson Wentz, Joe Burrow, Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield, Ryan Tannehill, Justin Herbert, Tom Brady, Dak Prescott, Matt Stafford, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. That's Chris Sims over at NBC Sports list, and he did the top 40. Says putting Josh Allen over Aaron Rodgers was the hardest call for the whole list for me. Look, I don't. Fine, you like Josh Allen more than Aaron Rodgers. I'll take Rodgers in a one-game situation. Although I like Allen a lot. Deshaun Watson. I mean, he's not even currently active, so I can't really. I mean, you got to put him on the list, I guess. Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Matt Stafford, Dak Prescott. I put Prescott. I'd put Dak Prescott over Lamar Jackson. I put him over Kyler Murray. I put him over Matthew Stafford. I mean, the rest of that I don't really care, but to not have Hurts on this list is egregious. Over Case Keenum? I mean, what team is Keenum even on? It's an orange team. That's what I know. The team is orange. Is he the backup for Cleveland? Is he the backup for Cincinnati? Where the hell is Case Keenum even playing? Kellen Mond? Seriously? He's the backup for the Browns. You can't have Case Keenum on this list. That's horrible. Andy Dalton, okay, he was good in his Cincinnati days. Not great, but this list is we'll talk about it tomorrow with Andrew. I mean, I want to get his thoughts on where Jalen Hurts really belongs on this list. How do you put Taysom Hill on the list ahead of, I mean, a guy like Teddy Bridgewater? Seriously, like Taysom Hill has taken like 2 games of snaps. I don't like, this is preposterous. I mean, I like it. He gets you to get a little, angry, or not angry, it's not the right, but, a little passionate there. But that list is putrid. It's a terrible list by Chris Sims. All right. So early in the day, I was explaining there's a Woj report out there that there's talks ongoing about Ben Simmons' future in Philadelphia. The two sides met, his agent and the Sixers. They have met, okay? What that tells me is this is not going to – you don't meet, as Paul Hudrick said on our show earlier, you don't meet if you have a problem. The two sides know they have a problem. And this is what Woj said earlier on SportsCenter in reporting what has happened between Ben Simmons and the Sixers with this meeting today.
But for now, the 76ers want to keep moving forward and try to improve the roster around Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and see if they can find a different way to maybe not just use him, but also to get him in the gym and figure out some ways to improve that shooting. But those conversations with Rich Paul, Ben Simmons' agent, and the Sixers, those are going to continue here in the coming weeks and perhaps months.
So they're going to try to get him to, get in the gym and work with them. And the second that Ben Simmons and his team say, no, we're not interested in that, that's when the Sixers need to move on. But this is why, all right, this is why the Sixers have to consider trading Ben Simmons, in my mind. It's not performance-based. The 76ers aren't sitting there thinking Ben Simmons is a hindrance to us. They know what Ben Simmons brings. They know what Ben Simmons is. They know what Ben Simmons' limitations are. That's the basketball side of things. The business side of things is very different. And you just had a regular season in which you had no fans in the building, right? No fans in the building. You didn't get fans in the building at the end of last year. You had a team that was the number 1 seed in the East. Okay, the last month and a half of that season, there wasn't a lot of juice behind this team because it was, well, I'll wait till the playoffs to believe in this team because I need to see if I can believe in Tobias Harris. I need to see if I can believe in Ben Simmons. The problem became you found out I can't believe in Tobias Harris at the level that I want to. I'm not saying he's a pauper, but I'm also not saying that he's the number 2 scorer on the team that's going to win the NBA title. You have now seen what Ben Simmons' limitations are, and this was at the optimum level. But I don't think the Sixers believe that, okay, this guy's a 33% free throw shooter for the rest of his life. Now, they're about to find out through these workouts and yada, yada, if Ben Simmons agrees. But here's the rub of why the Sixers have to consider trading Ben Simmons. You cannot go through another 82-game season where nobody cares. The fans are like, guess what? Ben Simmons could score 25 a game, shooting jumpers all over the place, and you're going to say, I'll believe it when I see it in the playoffs. Tobias Harris can up his average to 25 a game. You're not going to believe in him until you see him score 25 a game in the playoffs. So what does that mean? You have 41 games in Philadelphia where you're like, I don't care. You have 41 games in Philadelphia where you're like, I don't need to really get jacked up about a game between Philadelphia and Charlotte. I don't really care about going to see Philadelphia play, let's say, Cleveland. I don't really care about Philadelphia playing the Washington Wizards. These games don't matter to me because we're in a society now where the only thing that matters is the playoffs. And quite frankly, the NBA has done this to themselves, so I don't pity them at all. Shame on them. Game doesn't matter to us, we'll sit our best players. Game doesn't matter to us, let's not play these guys tonight. Game doesn't matter to us. You have set the precedent, NBA, that these games don't matter to you, so now the players don't play, so the fans in turn have now said, these games don't matter to me either. So the only way that you can get these games to possibly matter for Sixers fans is doing what? Changing the laundry. Changing the dynamic. Changing the roster. If you bring Ben Simmons back, it's not the wrong basketball move. It might be the wrong business move. If you bring Ben Simmons back, you're essentially saying, okay, same core that hasn't won before, but we're going to try it again anyway. And then the fans are going to say, I've seen this already. I won't believe in this crew until I see it in the playoffs. So if they come back on opening night next year and their starting lineup is Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, Seth Curry, and let's say Matisse Thybulle instead of Danny Green, you're going to say, I've seen this team already, and I know what their limitations are. I know that they are going to get knocked out in the second round of the playoffs. So they have to somehow flip the script on that group. Because this team, they flipped the script on 2 players. They got rid of Josh Richardson and Al Horford, and they brought in 2 players. And you were like, okay, let me watch this team. And then they were the number 1 seed. And you were like, oh, okay, well, a month and a half left in the season, you were like, okay, I've seen enough. Like, okay, they're the 1 seed. They're good. But I'll only believe this when I see it because teams are going to defend them differently. And can Tobias Harris score? And can Ben Simmons score in a big moment? And the answer was not at the level you need them to if one or the other is not playing well. If Tobias Harris isn't playing well, then I need Ben Simmons to score more. If Danny Green is out and I don't have anybody to space the floor in that corner, then I need Ben Simmons to give me more. It's all a domino effect. So if I'm looking at the Sixers and I'm Josh Harris, I have to say, is it really a smart business decision to bring this guy back? Even if you, Daryl Morey, the basketball guy, is telling me, hey, we'll fix this guy, we'll get him right, it's going to be hard to sell, right? It's going to be hard to sell this to the fan base. Hey, 41 times we got to open the barn and nobody cares because they only care. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to sell out. I think they will. But keep in mind, got to sell jerseys, got to buy apparel, you got to, all that stuff, the buzz around this team, not going to be the same. There's no question about it. On the basketball side of things, I think the Sixers have one way to go. You sit down with Ben Simmons, and if he doesn't agree to work out with your team, with your plan, he's got to go. There's no question about it. If he says, I want to work with my brother, if he says, I want to go back to L.A., if he says, I want to go hang out on South Beach, you got to trade him. If he's willing to say, I'll stay in Philadelphia and I'll work with your team, all right, then I'll give you a shot. At that point, if he says, I'm willing to stay in Philly and work on my game, and then under your supervision, he goes out in the court and doesn't perform, fails to shoot, shoots 35% from the free throw line, which I don't even think is possible in a regular season. I don't think that you can shoot 35% from the line. I mean, you'd have to, it would be unbelievable. What's the lowest percentage anyone's ever shot from the free throw line in a regular season? I can understand a small sample size, a bad free throw shooter just having a bad, but this was more than that. But if you work with him and you say, I have a plan to get this guy better, and he accepts it, and then he goes out in the court and it doesn't translate, at that point you say, and now you might say, well, then nobody else wants him either. Here's the point, though. You're already getting pennies on the dollar. You're already saying we're not getting what we want for him. If he's willing to stay in Philadelphia and work out here, you keep Ben Simmons, fine. If he's not willing to stay here and work out with your team, you got to get rid of him. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Mike, that makes a lot of sense about the 41 games. Keep up the great work. Yeah, I mean, look, it makes a lot of sense because it's a business. It's a business first and foremost. The process was a business. That's all it was. It was a marketing scheme to get people to basically sweep under the rug that we're not going to win games. That's all it was. People make this huge deal. It's about winning championships. It's only about winning championships. They had to sell that to people who aren't naive, who are too naive to figure out what it really was. It was a way to reinvigorate their business. And you all got sucked right in. You're out there fighting over whether the process was a success or not based on what they won. It was never about what they won. It was always about bringing you back, making the business profitable. I know people don't want to hear that. Of course you don't. But they suckered you in. You're buying the jerseys. You're buying the tickets. You're selling them out. They're going to every game. You're engaging. It's like someone on Twitter who engages with me. You know me. I don't know you. I've suckered you in. I thank you for listening all the time. But the fact of the matter is, my Twitter handle is @MikeGillShow. It's my real name with my real likeness. You have to use a fake name. I don't know you. You know me. And that's the Sixers with the process. They have their name right out there. We're the Sixers. And you're the guy who has to say, this was about winning championships. And they're saying, no, it's not. It's about you buying tickets to come see us play. It's about you buying jerseys from us. And that's all it was about. It was a marketing ploy to take the team from irrelevant to relevancy. Not on the court, in your mind. That's all. In your mind. You believe they can win. And when they don't win, you're disappointed. And when you're disappointed, you need to blame something. So you blame the process and call it a failure. All while they have increased the value of their franchise 100-fold. I mean, go back to them in the last 20 years. I don't think anybody cared about this team. You do now. You do now. They beat you. They won. So you can complain about that all you want. It was never about winning championships. That's just the marketing ploy. It was about getting you back as a fan because you stopped being a fan of this team. And now you're back. But you're teetering. If they bring this team back again, you're going to start to teeter. And they know that. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Best. Call Jenkins for heating, air conditioning, installation, service and maintenance, plumbing, drain cleaning, 609-641-6440, JenkinsPlumbingHeating.com. All right, we got the sound of the day. Good guests today. Keith Smith, Adam Kaplan, Frank Close. Tomorrow, it's a good day. Mike McGarry's back. Susie Hunter's back. Paul Hudrick will wrap up the Sixers season. We'll get his thoughts on this Ben Simmons report. Bob Wankel on the Phillies weekend. Happy Hour Friday tomorrow. All right, I can dig it. I can dig it. I can dig it, sucker. All right, that was my Booker T. You watched that A&E thing on the WWE Treasures?
I haven't watched any of them yet.
Oh, wow. They had a 2-hour one on Ric Flair the other night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, about looking for apparently. Now, I'm not like because I didn't watch like WCW or like the NWA when Flair was kind of coming in.
Right.
But apparently he wore this black robe with butterflies on it. And that was like his signature robe when he made his first entrance from WCW to WWE.
Okay.
So that was his first ever appearance. He wore this black robe with butterflies on it. And nobody has been able to find it for 25 years. They had no idea where it was. They didn't know who had it. And they were like looking all over trying to find this thing. And they finally found it. You know what the guy got in return for the robe? Like, you know the premise of the show?
They find it and then they buy it?
Well, no, they're looking for like lost artifacts because I guess they're trying to put like a physical building that fans could come to and then look at all these like ancient, like old artifacts, like boots, robes, belts, yada, yada.
That's cool.
So they go to like former wrestlers and they'll be like, hey, like what's some stuff that like means the most to you? Like Undertaker was looking for his original like purple sash, or, Mankind was looking for his original like leather mask, because inevitably collectors get their hands on these things. So some of these collectors' houses are like filled with, it's unbelievable some of the stuff in this house, but nobody could find who had this robe. Well, apparently Flair was drunk one night, left it in the hotel room, and the hotel had it. Like somebody who went in that room after ended up having it. So he's had it for 25 years. He didn't know what to do with it. So in return, he ends up getting, so WWE like works it out with the hotel manager to kind of broker the deal with this guy. And he's like, listen, the guy wants the Ric Flair jungle robe. So apparently he wore this jungle robe in one of his matches. I don't know. A pair of boots. And then he asked for, that was what he asked for in a trade.
Okay.
They get that. Then the guy says he wants $25,000 in addition. They kick in the $25,000. He says he wants $50,000. They say, all right, we'll do 50. He says he wants $60,000. So finally he agrees to make the deal. So he gets the one robe that they had to actually go
and find
that robe. And they found that a referee had the robe, and the referee did not want to part with the robe.
Oh my goodness.
So they had to give him a new robe to replace the robe that they took from him.
To give to the other guy.
To get the
butterfly robe.
To get the butterfly robe. So the guy got a pair of boots that he wore in the 1992 Royal Rumble, the jungle robe, and $60,000 for the robe.
I guess holding on to it for 20, 30 years paid off, didn't it?
Yeah, $60,000 plus those other artifacts. You should watch that show, though. Even like it's just like neat to see like what they're doing to find these people that have this stuff.
I mean, that story in itself is just insane.
Yeah. I know you'll be talking more about this Ben Simmons stuff. Ben Golliver's on tonight. He's really good.
Yes, Ben Golliver will talk about the Sixers and the NBA playoffs.
So that's coming up at 6:20. Game night's up next. Josh will take you till 7 with another hour of discussion. And tomorrow I'm back with a full lineup. McGarry's back. Susie Hunter's back. Paul Hudrick's back. Bob Wankel's here. And the PT. All right. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Have a great night, everybody.